Okay. So we are going to call to order at 6:10 p.m. And I didn't bring my own agenda, which was really dumb. Oh, well, we'll wing it.
Okay.
So
we are
if
gonna
we can all
call to
stand for
order
the
at
Pledge of Allegiance,
6:10
please.
p.m. And I didn't bring my own agenda, which was really dumb.
I pledge allegiance to the
well,
flag
we'll
of
wing
the
it.
United States of
Um,
America.
So
we are
if we
gonna
can all
call to
stand for
order
the
at
Pledge of
6:10.
Allegiance.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And next, we're going to do the roll call. Commissioner Clark is absent. Commissioner Hybels? Present. Commissioner Yun?
Present.
Commissioner Lewis?
Present.
Commissioner Roy?
Present.
Commissioner Sykes?
Present.
Commissioner Jones?
Present.
Thank you. Okay. So with that, I think we're going to jump right in to our continued commissioner training this evening. And Rania is back with us for her second module. And I'm going to let her introduce this module and what we're going to do on this one.
That, yeah. Good evening, Commissioners. It's good to see you. It's good to be with you. Thank you for having me. Good evening to the Chief who's with us, Ms. Neb and Mr. Reisner, and of course to the members of the public who are either tuning in here with us or might be listening in to a recording.
Just one, the city manager, Mr. Murray, is joining us this evening. Is he on yet? He's not, so he should be here in a few minutes.
Okay, great. Good evening to him when he decides to come in. We are doing 2 modules tonight, so I hope I have made it as compelling as possible, but this first one is a little bit dense and a little bit dry, but we're going to get through it together. The first, we're kind of doubling down on where we started. Last week, we kind of really talked about some soft skills and some soft power, and we went over a couple of tenets. And the theme, or my biggest takeaway, actually, let me ask you. I wonder if you can give me one word that maybe when you think of the training last week, when you think of the commission, when we think of what we discussed last week, what one word would you use to summarize, or just come back into the conversation? And it's really okay if you haven't thought about it since.
Integrity.
Thank you. Who else? Decorum.
I can't think of one, frankly.
No worries. Any others?
I was thinking the word discernment.
Discernment, yep.
Outreach or engagement.
Awesome. Okay, I'll take it. Thank you. Yeah, all are the same, right? Now we're going to do rules a little bit this evening: anti-discrimination, harassment, bias, diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. And again, it's not that you haven't experienced or that you don't know what it is. It's just it takes a different lens in this role, right? So heady, but hopefully you can see why. And not a bad idea to keep going through this just every so often. Again, all terms that you know, all concepts that you know, that you've either experienced yourself or unfortunately you've kind of practiced, maybe accidentally. This time, we're just going to clean it up, make sure that you know, because it's a slightly different role. I said that, next slide, please. I said that we were echoing the same drum beat. You're going to keep hearing it, probably in the third one as well when we get to procedural justice. Integrity, transparency, accountability. But same, discernment. We talked about outreach, all of that good stuff. Once again, just as a reminder, why it matters, you are now a public official, so to speak. You're not completely a public official. There is not too much that you can do or too much power, but you've got enough to be dangerous, enough to be powerful. So we just want to make sure that you are moving with integrity. You also get to influence and shape public safety now in Vallejo. And that means having to, we talked last week a bit about credibility and your legitimacy. So all of this now, right, is at stake. Bias and equity, some of these things are, I mean, I still have a hard time between anti-discrimination and bias. They're so tricksy. And the scary bit is, of course, that it shows up inadvertently, or sometimes it's a positive bias, still a bias. So just knowing all of the things that can start to affect, and then being able to check yourself, and more importantly, figuring out, if you need to, how you respectfully check each other, right? So I'm not going to talk to you too much about how you work with each other, but that's also kind of what I mean. You'll start seeing them in the scenarios. Next slide, please. So I mentioned what we'll cover. Again, some of this repeated. I've shared why, human behavior, but also you can now come back. Hopefully you remember, if nothing else, that, hey, what's that? How would I describe anti-discrimination to someone? How would I describe harassment? It's about building clarity, judgment, and compassion as you step into your role. We're doing this because you have to, but we're really doing it because it's important that we do. And it's going to be part of your everyday, but it really is once you step into this job. It's been automatic before. I'm asking you now to be intentional about it, right? Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So the way I've structured these, again, you'll forgive me, this might be a little bit dry. We're going to read some, and then I'm going to talk to you about like just a human, at least my understanding how I would define it. And I used chat for this. But the reason I'm reading, one, is for your recording, two, so that you can read along with me. And again, we just capture it, right? So the first one we're doing is anti-discrimination. I've tried to set this up to kind of ground it in Vallejo rules first and foremost. And then absent that, we're going to ground it in California law. Absent both of those, code of ethics, code of conduct. Vallejo Municipal Code, anti-discrimination shows up in relation to the city's commitment to providing equal employment opportunity for all qualified persons. The part that I really want you to be aware of is the considered without regard. All applicants will be considered without regard to race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, gender expression, marital status, ancestry, medical condition, cancer and genetic characteristics, genetic information, or denial of medical and family care or leave, or any other non-job related factors. Okay. Anti-discrimination for me, how I would define it, human terms, is just treating someone unfairly, right? Because of something that they are, because they represent something to you. So then your task is to try and recognize where that unfairness is if you see it, and stop it. Stop it if it's one of you, stop it if you're seeing it in your work, stop it if you're seeing it somewhere else. Does anyone have a better description? Does that feel comfortable? Does anyone have a richer or any detail about that description? Okay. How it might show up. So I've found, or I've come up with a couple, and we'll get into more scenarios, but commissioners use language during public sessions that implies judgment based on race, gender, or cultural background. You can perhaps imagine that, right? Like, again, we're quite familiar by now, we're in a public meeting, the mics are on, cameras are on, but you're so used to it, you're just chatting, and you say something that maybe you didn't mean to, or maybe you did. Expectations at a glance. So this is kind of, again, what's expected of you. Avoid assumptions. Be curious. Be curious of your fellow commissioners. If you hear a fellow commissioner say something that sounded like, oh, wait, ask. Don't assume. Surely you didn't mean to. Did you just say, I don't think you meant it, but it landed like, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing and understanding you right? Right? Speak up if you notice. Be mindful that perception matters. So much of this today, procedural justice, especially the third module that we'll do after this one, it's about my reality versus yours. Just because you know that it's fair and you set it up fairly, if I don't get to feel and see that it's fair, it doesn't matter. We've created a delta. We've created a distinction between me and you. So far, so good? All right. So anti-discrimination, everyone gets a fair shot. Next slide, please. Harassment. While the city doesn't define harassment explicitly, it affirms its commitment to equal opportunity and a work environment free from discrimination and harassment in its equal employment opportunity policies. The quote from the city, it is the policy of the city of Vallejo to provide equal employment opportunity for all qualified persons. It's the same definition as anti-discrimination. That's why it gets a little hairy, because they're using the same. For this one, again, in particular, or any other non-job related factors, right? So you've heard of toxic work environments? more than likely because of harassment, right? That's where some of this starts to lead. In your ordinance, you actually have emphasis impartiality and professionalism, but you don't include a standalone definition of harassment. So I was just trying to find like a line on a definition. That's why I have some of these as well as the code, so that you know. You start, if you hear that code, you start to become familiar. You don't have to learn them. No one's going to test you. Anytime you have a legal issue or a question, you do have counsel. So go to them. But this is, again, just for your own self-reflection. How it might show up. I mean, I wonder if any of you have experienced harassment or a toxic work environment. Yeah. Do you want to, Commissioner, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you want to share what harassment means to you or how you would define it? Not a test, just wondering.
Probably for me, in my line of work, it's mostly actually I get harassed by my age because I'm perceived as younger.
Yeah.
And so there is a bit of a bias in when people communicate to me. When people communicate to me, usually they start off, well, I don't know if you remember this, you might be too young, and then they rattle off certain things, and then it gives me a perception of, oh, I guess I don't know that because of my age, but you don't know my age.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone has experienced toxic work environments where people say certain negative or give a perception that isn't necessarily warranted. And I did like the fact that you did mention it's not about how you or how you state it, it's how that person perceives it, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and it's honestly one of the hardest things. That's such a good example, right? Because to my ears, and I don't know how old you are, but I've started to use that line a little bit, and without intending. I also, in one of my roles serving commissions, one of the commissioners called me kiddo, which is A, an Americanism that I don't really understand, and two, I was well within my 40s, so I didn't really know what to do about it. But this is, I just want to point out, this is really hairy stuff. I don't expect you to know it. Hopefully you don't have to be in a position where you have to deal with it. I am sharing with you, one, so that you will know it, so now there's no excuses, but more so, be mindful of when you do it. So I've also worked in commissions where I didn't feel like that kiddo comment was harassment. I don't know if you did. So that we're constantly being asked to don't be too sensitive. Well, I don't know where that line is, right? Versus clear bullying that you feel is, it really is.
When you say it like in passing and it's once or twice, but then when it's consistently and you consistently hear that, but you are with your peers and you don't hear that comment made to others, and it's constantly reinforced, it makes you think twice of, that's only directed at me.
Yeah.
So it's the repeated enforcement of that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Or then me joking about it, like you're going to age really well. Yeah, that's not good. No, I'm teasing you. But yeah, I mean, you can see how even humor gets us into trouble, right? So just be mindful. There's an example that I did want to point out, and maybe starts to speak to something that Commissioner Yoon was that we were talking about. A pattern of behavior, one of the examples, a pattern of behavior makes a community member feel unwelcome at public meetings, even if nothing was said outright. That's some of the difficulty of harassment or even a toxic work environment. It's quite hard to prove. It's also subjective. I feel it, therefore. But do try and be receptive, right? If someone does come and say, I don't think you might not get that feeling word. So what's the clue? And so when we get to trauma-informed, which I think is on the 22nd, we'll start looking at clues for human behavior. But what's the thing? And then be open to it. Why didn't you feel comfortable? Oh, I'm so sorry you didn't, right? You apologize whether you agree with it or not. You don't want anyone in your meeting to feel anything but welcome, comfortable, included, invited. I want to also point out under the expectations, again, I'm going to leave you with this. I don't really want to walk through a slide, but I hope I've packed it enough so that there is meat for you to kind of sit with. Recognize the power dynamics. This is really awkward. You are, but hopefully not. I mean, it's awkward only in the beginning. You're civilian volunteers, but here you are in a position of power. There is a power dynamic between us, right? There'll be a public comment. You have power over that person, and so how you work that power is where the trickiness of some of that comes in. Also, and I think again we touched on this last week, you are human. You are volunteers. You're going to be coming, or all your work is in the evenings and weekends, unless you're lucky and you can kind of fit it in during the day. Otherwise, you're coming in from a full day and then still now having to deal with the shenanigans of the world that's coming at you. Check that, catch your breath, right? If you need a walk, take a walk in this exactly the same way that you might expect an officer to behave. You don't expect them, we expect our officers to be courteous, right? Even if they're having a bad day. And there's training and things that we ask them to do, like take a walk, do the same. Do the same. If you're having a bad night and you're just not feeling it, maybe you're not very vocal that night. Know yourself and say to one of your colleagues, you know what, I'm not going to be able to speak up too much because I think I might lose it. So if I'm not talking too much, that's why. But here's what, by the way, here are the things that I'd like to convey for tonight's meeting so that you don't lose your voice either. Okay. But just be mindful, especially with harassment, there's that too sensitive versus would a reasonable person feel unsafe and disrespected? You know. Okay. Moving on to bias. Vallejo City Council's Code of Ethics and Conduct for elected and appointed officials emphasizes impartiality, fairness, and avoiding both real and perceived conflicts of interest. While the term bias is not explicitly defined, expectations include, and this is quoted, public officials should be independent, impartial, and fair in their judgment and actions. They shall conduct public business in a manner that is both factually and legally correct, and shall avoid actions that give the appearance of wrongdoing. Bias is another tricky one, right? For me, does anyone want to try and tell me what they think about bias? How would you define bias? Give me an example of bias that you would have seen.
I see it as having a preconceived idea about something or someone.
Yeah.
That's not based on.
That's not
I'm sorry. A preconceived idea about something or someone that's not always based on fact.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, which is maybe
Okay.
unfair. Can you point out a bias that you know you hold?
Well, let's see. I know you told us to stay off social media, but I just saw something where a celebrity was a victim of a burglary and said that all people of color are dumb and criminals and things like that. She's kind of painting everybody in the same category, saying all people of color commit burglaries and always engage in criminal acts.
Thank you. That was a good deflection as well, Commissioner. I know that. Thank you. Absolutely. You more than often than not, you recognize negative bias, right? It's assumptions. That's how because I have a really hard time differentiating between bias and discrimination. They feel so close to me, even in the definition of it. But bias is an assumption. The reason I asked if you can name one is that we also have positive bias, still a bias. I went to an all-girls school. I come from a predominantly matriarchal, female-dominated family. I tend to feel safer around women. That's my positive bias. I feel safer. I feel good. I don't feel bad. I'm not angry about it. So be mindful of both, right? Who are we preferring? Who feels safer? Based on really not very much. I've also been deeply brutalized at that all-girls school. But there are positive biases as well that you want to be mindful of. Check assumptions. This one's hard. This is where also you kind of get to check each other. I don't think you meant to say that, but it sounds to me like you're preferring da-da-da. Anyway, okay. On to the next one, please. Diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. I'm just going to read the quote because I realize I've been reading my editorial around it. The City of Vallejo is committed to active and progressive equal employment opportunity programs. I think what I was trying to point out is, again, there are no legal definitions for you that you can align on. That means that you're going to have to understand or decide as a committee that this is okay and these are the definitions that we want to use. The reason that I say that is that so you don't, if there's not alignment around some of the simple things, if you don't build that muscle, you start going off and working like you think you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, but you're actually, oh, wait, I thought the objective was blah, 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 blah. Oh, wait, I thought the meaning was this. So I always like to test my assumptions. Okay, so you need 4 trainings. You need them done before blah. We're training how many commissioners? Just let me, okay, who's doing, got it, right. These are the assumptions, that's what I know, everything else we build. So test your assumptions. Just before we start, how are we defining this? Okay, good, yeah, that's how I understand it as well. Or someone else gets to say, wait, no. Bias to me means, right? Okay. Sorry, I don't know where I went on that tangent, I think alignment. Oh yeah, that's right, because there wasn't a legal definition. Diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. Diversity, who's in the room? I mean, these also have been played to death. I'm also mindful, I know we're not really getting into politics, but you're hearing it a lot more now, so these are becoming controversial terms. Maybe they were laden or loaded terms before, but they feel really controversial now. And I don't think they should be. Diversity is who's in the room. Inclusion, what did you allow that person to do? Like this I actually picked up from private sector work, from a mentor that I had that I really, really appreciated. Her point to me is, if she invites me to a meeting, that means I'm in the room, that means I'm expected to participate. That's inclusion. Otherwise, don't come to the room. If you're invited to the table, right, you're invited to the table, but if you don't have a speaking part, are you invited to the table? Now you're just sat next to me. So what does your inclusion look like? We're having a public meeting. This is slightly different. This is a special, and it's a workshop, right? So you noticed last week how public comment was a little different, and we even talked about public comment. We're not responding, right? But what does it mean to be included in these rooms? How we don't get to do very much, but if I had my druthers, a table set up, right? I think last week I had there are folks behind me. I'm being sensitive because I don't know what that looks like to them. So I just want to make sure that everyone feels included. It's just an extra step. You don't have to do it, but just think about, I mean, you do have to be inclusive. You don't, not to every degree, you're just not going to be able to, but do try, because again, perception is reality. If I don't feel it, that means you weren't. And if enough of me don't feel it, then we have a problem, right? Then you've got an angry mob. Then I'm going to be demonstrate or whatever it is folks do in Vallejo. I know what we do in San Francisco. That's diversity, equity, inclusion. And equity, of course, is recognizing that not everyone started at the same place, right? Very different from equality. This is where I think things start to get controversial, because if we believe in equity, that means that there needs to be an extra step, right? If I didn't have the same privileges as I have, or if, let me give you an example. There's a nonprofit that was making an increased effort to hire folks that had recently been released from prison, from jail. And it was honorable and wonderful, and all of a sudden all these folks got jobs, and it looked fantastic and very progressive and whatever. And then the folks that got these jobs started to get into trouble over some really menial things, because so-and-so didn't know how to draft an agenda. I've told her 3 times we need an agenda for a meeting and there's no agenda, right? So-and-so isn't writing the report. Okay. They didn't have the same experiences. They didn't have the same education. You've just told me what their background is. So then you've got an extra step. You've still got inclusion. Don't make them feel different. Just be aware. And so therefore it's slightly, maybe more training. Maybe it's more time. Each one of us is going to have a thing that we're not good at, that the other one is. It's another reason we talked last week about delegating responsibility. Now you need to help each other, right? My partner's dyslexic, and so I read to him sometimes, or he will read. It's why we do podcasts, and I'm very aware of non-paper products, right? I'm mindful of. So think about that as you're thinking about your access, especially when you get to reviewing policy and bringing in community voice into policy recommendations. So, for example, let's say that you notice once everything's in place, you notice that there are, I don't even know if you use canines here. I'm clearly making this up. Okay, I hope it's a safe analogy to make. Let's see. Please correct me though. You notice that there have been more dog bites than normal, right? It's been an increase of 10 dog bites over the last quarter than we have ever had. What would you do? You are a commissioner. What are you doing? No or wrong answer. And I don't mean to put you on the spot. We're just going to start working through some real life scenarios.
Maybe see why the dogs are biting?
Okay, how?
Probably have an animal trainer or something come in or something like that.
Okay. Any other ideas? I'd start by inviting the chief to explain. Right? Chief, can you come to a public meeting? Chief feels like, I don't want to be put on display just yet. I'm not sure. Would you be open to a private session first? Right? What would you say? Are you open to a private session? Tell me why.
I would say no. I would say no, and then because it has to be public for everybody to see, right?
Does it?
Not
Okay.
necessarily.
Keep going. Say more.
Well, I mean, there's a place for a private meeting and there's a place for a public meeting. We can certainly, we have the right to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So hands up who would agree to a private meeting with the chief, just very quickly. Tell me why.
If it's all of us, that's a Brown Act issue.
Yeah.
Now, if I ask certain questions specific that I want addressed that may not necessarily, if it's a one-on-one, a two-on-one, maybe. If it's my personal questions to them, then I would consider a private conversation.
Very nice.
However,
Yes.
if it's related to everything else and it's a public, that's where the line kind of gets drawn for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So, two things. 'Cause I'm going to jump in on this topic, but I'm also going to ask all of you to please still move your mics closer because we're getting comment that the public can't hear, and if they can't hear, then it's not on the recorded version, which also will mean it'll be hard to hear at home later for those who may have missed the meeting or who want to review the meeting. So there isn't a right answer or a wrong answer to this one, primarily because it's a kind of it depends. So for staff, let's see, you're asking the chief that question. You want to have a meeting with the chief about dog bites or what's happening with our canine officers. We call the dogs canine officers. I do, anyway. Aren't they canine officers? Okay, yeah. Is there anything wrong with each of you meeting individually with the chief about that? From a Brown Act perspective, the answer is no, provided he doesn't tell any one of you what any one of the other of you said. So we don't want a serial meeting under the Brown Act. So that's number one. Can it happen? Sure. But what's the risk? So one of the things that staff has to guard against in that circumstance is giving one or more of you different information than the others get. Because for our ethics as staff, we try to make sure that nobody is, and there are exceptions, of course, but nobody has information about a topic that is coming before them where others are likely to be surprised by the information. So short answer to a question, sure. A request for information, is it long? Well, then everybody needs to receive it. One-way communication is okay. So let's just say Commissioner Jones asks the question about canines. He's the only one who asks for an individual meeting, but it's clear that there's an issue that's been the subject of conversation. And the chief wants to make sure everybody has that information. Well, that one-way communication in the form of either a memo or an email or just pushing information out to you, that's allowed for sure. Now, that one-way communication is going to become a public communication. Somebody can ask for it, certainly. Or maybe you all decide after you've gotten it, wow, let's put this on the agenda. Chief, we'd like to put it on the agenda so we can have a full discussion about it and the public can hear, you know, why those incidents are up, what has happened, have we been deploying them more? Have we been sent them to training and we're deploying them in more dangerous situations? Like, what are the parameters around that? So I think if you're interested in it, if it's come to you, the public might be interested in it too. So you could have that private meeting to precede a more public meeting. You get enough information to say, wow, that's something I think the public's going to be interested in. Let's bring this conversation up a level so the public can hear about it. Those are all options under those circumstances, but it does kind of depend. How comfortable are you? How comfortable is the chief with making sure you all get that information, et cetera? So there's no right, I think Rania said there's no right answer. There really isn't a perfectly right answer, except don't talk to one another outside the confines of the meeting. And certainly the chief should never really be communicating to each of you about a meeting he had with somebody else without asking you first, have you talked to anybody about this subject? Other than that, I think you're probably fine.
Thank you for that build. So Commissioner Jones, if you decided that no, you didn't, that you were adamant that you didn't want to meet the chief privately, you would then set precedent, right? You'd say to the chief, hey, listen, I appreciate this. Personally, I want all our meetings in public, so I'll leave it to the other commissioners if they insist on doing it. And likewise, you wouldn't, you'd do it more in an ad hoc, which we'd get to, so a subset. So as a commission, you might decide, this is something that we're interested in. Let's go check it out, right? 3 of you decide that you're going to start an ad hoc. You're going to go speak to the chief. He doesn't have any answers. Now you need to go and get the public. Because like, wait, do we have an issue or do we not have an issue? Maybe it's just the numbers. To Veronica's point, so many variables. They're still doing their investigations. Let's figure it out. I want to come back to the equity point, though. Now you're about to ask humans that haven't read a policy, and we kind of talked a bit about this last week, right? Here's that equity piece. Here's that. This is where accessibility comes into place. If you're able to have it in different languages, if you're able to speak to it as a human, like even just me like, wait, let me go and find a definition for anti-discrimination that isn't legal, just so that I can wrap my head around it, right? So can I speak to it? So this is what happens. By the way, have you ever had a dog encounter, or however you want to? Remember, the question that you ask is going to lead it. Have you ever had an encounter with a police canine? It's very different from, how did you feel when a dog was, wait, I didn't tell you that a dog was at me, but now suddenly am I having to make out, you see? Again, it's not wrong, just catch yourself. Oh, wait, I didn't mean to be leading. Actually, what I meant to ask you was, right, come back to it. But that's that equity portion in that story. That was a very long-winded story to get to that. But I hope that helps. Yeah, equity is really perhaps the hardest bit, because I think that's the part where we start. And this is, again, all of this is kind of quite loaded and quite hairy. There are some practices that will feel inequitable. And so this is where you really need to practice discernment. We have a situation in a jurisdiction, and again, it's California, so I imagine it's everywhere, but homeless encampments, unaddressed folks, their property. We have in San Francisco the sit-lie rule. They're not allowed to sit or lie or sleep, right? So they get moved, search and seizure. Sometimes their stuff gets seized, right? And so it tends to happen to the more marginalized, a community that's most marginalized, disenfranchised, unaddressed, many problems. So you can start seeing the inequity in the system. This is part your job, but also you can't take on the whole system. Okay, I think you get it. I hope you get it, right? Okay, moving on. Thank you so much. On to the next slide, please. Okay, this is where we're going to play bingo. Don't read them too much. There's a basket in front of you. Would each, here's what I'm suggesting, just again, so it's not reading things. You're going to pick a number. It's going to lead to the scenario. That person who picks the number, if you feel comfortable, please read it. If you don't feel comfortable, assign someone else to read it. And we go from there. Let's go. Commissioner Roy, you pick the first one. What's your number?
Oh, we go like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. If we had more time, we really would have turned this into bingo, which could have been a bias. I don't know.
Okay, so I have scenario 6. So I'll go ahead and read it.
Good.
Okay. A newspaper reports no firearm was recovered after a tragic use of force incident in which an officer allegedly gunned down a young man. The case is set for closed session review by the commission.
Would you mind reiterating what you read? I don't speak English very well, so I'm not sure I understand the story. Can you sum it up for me?
Oh, absolutely. In this situation, a newspaper has reported on a tragic use of force incident, and they have reported that no firearm was recovered after the incident from the, I don't know, non-officer person involved.
Why do you stop talking to me like a human? Do you say firearm?
Firearm, yeah.
Is that how you talk? Don't we say gun?
Oh, no, I mean,
Yeah,
when you have like a
talk to me
text in front of you,
I
you
know,
like
I'm
kind of
sorry,
like
I'm
absorb a
really,
little bit
this
of
is
it, right?
very
Yeah.
mean, but I'm loving it.
Okay, newspaper reported on an officer-involved incident that, where a gun was not found on the person who was involved in an incident who was not the officer. I don't know what word to
You're
say
on the
about that
spot.
person.
You get it.
But yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So what's going on in this story? This is for us to all discuss. What's happening with the story right now? And I only put you on the spot because we just came out of equity.
Yeah, sure.
And I imagine that if you were telling your friend that you'd, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're on I know. I'm sorry. But thank you. Thanks for being
Sure.
good sport. What's happening in this story?
There was a newspaper story.
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
So you guys are,
What we know is there's a newspaper report,
yeah.
and so that's what the public's gonna see.
Yeah.
And we, as a body, are gonna come together and we're gonna want more information.
Are you bothered that there wasn't a gun found?
Well, all I know is that there's a newspaper story, there wasn't a gun found.
Bingo. Thank you very
know,
much.
I
Yeah.
I don't really have enough information to,
Yeah. Yeah. Precisely. Thank you so much. And that, anything else coming up for you from that, just in case? That's what I was leading with.
So the question is, what if he didn't have a firearm, was there some kind of other weapon that was used that was perceived as threatening to the officer?
And maybe that. So the incident that this story was based off of, in my mind, was there was an incident in San Francisco that is public, and it was it was after one of the games, a Giants game or something. So people are out, people are having a good time. Officer rolls up. You're watching through his camera and then some other cameras. Starts chatting to some folks, some men standing around, right? Loitering, maybe, drinking. Starts chatting, but in a very, what are you doing? But it's chatting, right? Is that harassment? Is it not? Am I being sensitive? Is the fella just asking? Then one of the gentlemen drinking takes off. Officer runs after and starts shooting while he's running. He said he saw a gun. Again, members of the public, phones are out. That's how we got the story. Phones are out, so everyone, all you can see is an officer running through North Beach. But when you paused, you do actually see the possible suspect throwing something. So yeah, due diligence. You have a very different role. Make sure to ask those questions. There are no dumb questions. What made you think? Whatever it is, this one I don't have. These are likely to be in closed session, right? Because you're actually talking about an investigation. So what we see is that newspaper. And so, yeah, you're going to have folks in public comment come out and be like, so what are you doing about it? Because the newspaper said. So, Commissioner Lewis, what are you doing about it? Because the newspaper said.
we're looking into it.
Thank you. Yeah, basically. If you're able to offer more information, do. Such as, it's an open investigation.
Yeah, it would be appropriate to acknowledge
Yeah.
the person and that, yeah, they read I read the same newspaper article that you did.
Yeah.
I have the same questions that you have. I'm gonna, we're gonna be looking into that further.
Yeah.
You can let them know that we have every intention of finding out what happened here.
Yep.
Well, and for you, I think I can't tell if that's on or not.
I don't think it is.
It doesn't, but it is.
Okay, but there we go. But for you, you can add to that, like, okay, well, it's an officer-involved shooting. Well, under our ordinance, those are mandatorily investigated by an outside investigator. We, the commission, will receive more information. Public, you may or may not receive that more information depending on what it reveals. But it's an opportunity for you to tell the public, too, what your role is in this process and that you will receive information that the public might not receive, and they certainly won't necessarily receive it as a result of a press information. So I think you let people know there's almost always more to the story, or there's certainly more that you would have to be looking at as part of that story. There's more that the department would have to be looking at as part of that story. And there's more that will come from an independent source upon which you will be basing your recommendations. That's the opportunity. That's that to educate the public on how you go about doing your business, and that there are facts that will come to you and how they will come to you, and then what your role is with those facts. I think if we just say, yeah, you know, oh, really, I saw that, not sure, we miss an opportunity to build that relationship with the public so that they learn that this commission is a commission that will receive confidential and trusted information upon which you will base your ultimate recommendation.
Thank you. All right. Who else has a number? Commissioner Lewis, seeing as you spoke last, what number did you get? Number 8. All right. Do you want to read it? Do you want someone else to read it?
Well, I don't know, I haven't read it yet. A commissioner visibly rolls their eyes every time a particular community member speaks during public comment. It's subtle, but it's become a pattern and people have noticed.
What's happening?
So probably the commissioner shouldn't be doing that. I would recommend that they stop doing that.
Yeah. What's happening?
It sounds like harassment.
Yeah, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know. You might get folks that come to every single meeting. You might get folks that doggedly follow you, that are going to get you right. There are people out there that are incredibly passionate about this. Yep, right. Sometimes they speak on point, sometimes they misspeak, sometimes they pass information, right, whatever they are. Though even your most irritating member of the public is your neighbor, is your person, is your you know these people because you are community reps yourself. So just be mindful. But again, this is the stuff that trips you up, because if I've had a long day and I'm only commissioned staff, it's just as, it's if not more, because then the member of the public is just like, what? So now you have it, right? Now you're eroding that trust and your credibility.
So now let me add a fact to your fact pattern. The citizen in question that the commissioner is eye-rolling about is a person of color. Oof. Now what might that say in addition to, now what do you need to be worried about?
Well, commissioners shouldn't be, and I know because I've been to city meetings, and you know, the same people get up, and some of them you know they're just going to go off topic, but it's their right,
Yeah.
and you got to respect that. So,
Anybody else on what that extra fact might lead to in terms of how the community, maybe other than the speaker, perceives the nonverbal communication?
I see it as bias, and you're getting ready to break the trust of the community because you're letting your feelings come across the panel to the community. And so, as Rania said earlier, we're all under scrutiny, being watched very carefully. So we have to kind of maintain a neutral stance on a lot of things. But yeah, it can come across as bias.
And I think the important point is remember that the eye roller may have really been more expressing some frustration about this person always comes and talks about the color of the sky. It doesn't really matter, and not relevant to you, not relevant to the speaking, like here this person goes again talking about the color of the sky, which is what's really eliciting the eye roll potentially for that person. And yet how it is perceived by the rest of the public who sees it could be something else, depending only upon that individual and what group that individual might represent, and might you be expressing something else other than just frustration with their speech. So I think, yeah, it's really important to look at the context of the conversation as well, or the nonverbal communication, I guess I should be calling it. And can it be taken even worse than I'm just frustrated with the speaker by someone who observes it?
Thank you. Well, you had the floor last.
Actually, could I ask?
Oh, yes, sorry,
So
we have a question there.
in that instance,
Yeah.
as a commissioner, someone else or the public comes and says, hey, this specific commissioner constantly rolls their eyes when I speak up. What do you do? I
What do
mean,
you do?
in my mind, I would probably talk to the commissioner in sidebar and say, hey, I've had a citizen or someone who's come up to me and said that they feel like they've noticed that you make gestures or some kind of eye roll.
Okay, and I'm the commissioner, and I say, oh, God, they're so irritating. Okay.
Okay, then.
But no, I'm not trying to put you off. This is how we talk to each other, right? Right. And so you're right. And say to me then, all right, but it's really important. Like, you're putting us all at risk. Just saying. If you want to carry on being like that. If you like me, you might be just like, are you all right? If you like me and know me, you'd be like, check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? So it just, one, how well do you know each other? And if you don't know each other, then you're going to have to work on that. Either getting to know each other. If you don't like people, you don't want to get to know each other, you don't have to, but you have to read each other's social cues. And you still have a responsibility. And then, okay, I keep on doing it. I've done it so many times now. You've had multiple members of the public come up. What would you do? Again, there's no right answer. We're going through this. I don't mean to put you on the spot. We're going through it live. If it happens, you might act completely differently, and you get to. But this does happen.
I think for me, I would say, hey, I've had multiple people come up to repeatedly saying they've noticed that you're doing this behavior. I don't know if you're aware about this behavior, but it's being noticed by others. And
Yeah.
what you choose to do with that is definitely on you. But I just want you to know that I've noticed it, other people have noticed it, and it may be perceived incorrectly, especially in the positions that we are in.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's ultimately up to that person if they choose to either receive it or not receive it.
I mean, the 6 of you are in a boat, and the 7 of us are in a boat, and I decide to drill a hole in the bottom of it. It's still up to me. Do you see what I'm saying, though? I'm about to sink you eventually. So you can be polite with me, and then at some point, as, again, you come into your own as a commission, you will be a chair or a vice chair, or however you decide your governance. You might want to file a complaint against me with the chair. You might make this, again, it's not official because none of you are employees of the city, but it means something because we've said it will. So it's guardrails that you will set. I don't know. I mean, hopefully it doesn't get to that, but you see what I'm saying? Like, at some point there might be commissioners that are not acting in the sentiment, in the spirit and the letter of the law, and you might have to do something about it. And if you're not sure, chat to council. It's private. If you're not sure, right? You're not trying to, like, get anyone. You're not throwing people under the bus. Like, please try not to. Like, we also talked about that. The infighting and stuff is also deflection, and we can see it. And then and so can the papers. And if the papers start writing about it, you've lost credibility. Yeah, right? If you are the story, you've lost it. Okay. You good? Does that make sense? Does everyone? You look like you have a question.
No, I do have a question.
Yeah, by all means.
I'm thinking in terms of if it's something that's continuous before a commission meeting, and I don't want to see it as specifically pinpointing this person, but want to say one of the things that we've noticed is that you make gestures when this particular person is speaking. You might want to reflect on the training that we had in terms of what we were taught and what we are supposed to do as commissioners and how we're trying to build our trust with the community. So in order to do that, we have to maintain a neutral stance, be it facial expressions, emotion, contain all of that.
Yeah.
So that's what comes across my mind. So just kind of because I'm looking at this as a team, so as a team, we want to encourage each other
Yeah,
and lift each other up and go, hey, you're doing this.
yeah.
So how about doing that,
Yeah.
the opposite?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you really have to, because all of your reputations are at risk for one. But in the same way, all of you get elevated if one of you is doing, I mean, again, all of you will be doing good work, but does that make sense? Like, you're in this together. You're tied to each other. How someone behaves or doesn't is going to reflect on you, whether you like it or not. Okay. All right, Commissioner, you ready to, what's your number?
Number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4.
I am going to do a bingo because we've got some really fun things to say in the UK. All right, keep going. Number 4. Do you want to read it out? Are you
Yeah,
comfortable?
I'll read it, sure.
Please do.
During deliberation, a former judge offers testimony with notable inconsistencies. Still, several commissioners lean toward believing them based on the professional background.
What's happening?
Well, we have a former judge who is offering, it seems like they're offering opinions because it says notable inconsistencies. So it makes you wonder if this particular judge has the full facts or looking at previous cases that they may have had and putting forth some comments and some thoughts on it, which may not be consistent with whatever the case is that we're hearing. But the fact that we're leaning toward the judge and caught by everything he's saying is concerning, because now we're showing a bias toward that judge because he's a professional. So we have to be careful of that, because the key to me in this is notable inconsistencies. And so we have to be conscious of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have anything else on that one?
Well, this is during deliberation. So
Yes.
during deliberation, a former judge offers testimony. Well, it seems to me, are we taking testimony during deliberation? I mean, deliberation is a separate thing from taking testimony.
Thank
So-
you for picking
so
up
if-
on my, on
so
my
if
inconsistency.
this guy gave
No,
some
absolutely.
testimony that had inconsistencies, then later, when we're deliberating, when it's just the, however many of us, I'm going to be going, I'm going to be pointing out my concern about inconsistencies.
Yeah.
The fact that he's a former judge is fine, but it doesn't mean that, you know, it's still, I'm still going to be concerned about inconsistencies
Yeah.
in the testimony. And that's something that is appropriate for us to discuss during deliberation.
Absolutely.
So,
It mirrors for me this one similar to your one regarding the newspaper, right? Like, just because you hear it, first off, who's the source? All right, it's a judge, but hang on, there's inconsistencies. So whatever credibility I might have thought of as a judge, now it's in question. So due diligence. Don't accept things on face value. Be curious. Double check. Ask. If it doesn't smell right, it doesn't smell right. Like, trust your instincts, but then trust each other's, right? So if someone's trying to really push it because, and we're kind of working around police. I just want to be super mindful. You also don't get to, you have to balance fairness when you're dealing with the cops as well. Whatever your felt experience, whatever your lived experience, that brings color and richness. I don't want you to lose that altogether. I'm not destroying the ego. I'm asking you to check it and know that the person in front of you or the story that you're about to be told by your independent investigator, these are humans, they are people, right? And so you got to figure out, and amongst yourselves, right, healed, like hurt people. So unless we're doing our own work, it's cheesy as that sounds, but I mean it. Unless you're able to do your own work, you really want to consider what the role means to you, right? So I just want to, I'm bringing that lens just because when I'm not bringing it, I'm not hitting it on the nose, but I do just want to make sure that we're balanced. And also you've got public perception. So you have to be able to do the storytelling around it as much as possible. We'll get to that. Okay. Next number? Go on then, Commissioner. What number did you get? 3.
A commissioner regularly comments on a staff member's appearance, pointing out their clothing, asking how much they paid, standing too close, touching them on the arm while speaking. No one has complained, but the behavior is consistent. That's undoubtedly going to be a male.
What is that?
What was that?
That's true. That's a fact. Well, it is kind of an interesting thing for me because, you know, my formative years were in the 50s. Things were a lot different.
Yeah.
And now I'm advised you're not allowed to comment on a female's appearance whatsoever. Nothing. So if you're asking me how I'm going to handle this with this other commissioner, I'm just going to say, dude, you might want to relax on that one. We're not allowed to be that way anymore. Don't be touching people.
Would you say it even if the person didn't complain, even if, again, there's nothing filed, right? The scenario was nothing, yeah, no one has complained, but their behavior is consistent. Would you still say it?
Really, I wouldn't. That's his problem. But you seem to be desiring us to monitor each other and
So tell me, if you don't mind, if it feels comfortable to explore that, tell me why in the real world you wouldn't. Like, what would come up?
well, that's
It's
his problem if he gets himself in trouble.
Got it.
Talking that way, you know, behaving in that way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what else I can say about it. I mean, it's not particularly normal for adults to be correcting each other. But I don't know.
So I love to add facts to your scenarios and see if it changes anybody's thoughts. But so let's pull on that thread a little bit and see where it goes. Because I think if you pull on that thread 3 times, you have something different, I think. So in Ranya's scenario, nobody's complained. And so if nobody's complained and you've got this observation, you're on the front end, theoretically, potentially, of whatever that behavior is. But 3 weeks later, maybe somebody does complain. Or 3 weeks after that, the behavior instead escalates into something that's very serious. So 3 more weeks and a second individual complains, or someone from another department complains. So the question really then is, does the breadth of our roles as commissioners, as staff, as public officials involve more than just that role? It's your staff person who that person is doing it to it. It's your lead, it's your secretary, it's your assigned person, assigned by the city manager's office to connect with you. And you can see she's uncomfortable, or he's uncomfortable. Let's make it he. You can see he's uncomfortable. And yet, Commissioner Susan Smith, I hope there's nobody named Susan Smith, there probably is, many, is continuing to act in that fashion, and the behavior's consistent. You've observed it on more than one occasion. Now, how do you feel about it? Like, that person is now, your staff person is really uncomfortable. He's darting his eyes around. He's looking at anything but this other commissioner who's making these inappropriate comments and or inappropriate gestures or inappropriate touches, and you're saying to yourself, this is going nowhere good. Does that change your mind about whether you speak up either to that commissioner or speak up in general?
You're asking me?
Sure.
I don't know. I tend to, if it was another male, I might tend to say, hey, chill, because you can get yourself in trouble with that kind of thing. I'm just speaking right off the cuff.
Yeah, sure. So you have, I think everybody has options. So speaking directly to that individual is an option, or saying to the city manager, who is a member of this process, who I assume is now on, but I don't know for sure because I can't tell from my laptop. Or saying to your assigned attorney, hey, I've witnessed this a couple of times. I'm not quite sure whether there's any there or whether that needs to be looked at, but I'm just going to tell you that I've observed it a couple of times. Because one of the things that, see something, say something, gets you to is that there is an opportunity to correct behavior before it becomes before you start reading about it on the front page of the newspaper, right? And I think we miss those opportunities sometimes. As an organization, every organization misses those opportunities at one point or another. Someone saw something and maybe didn't say something, and then that opportunity is lost to get to that individual or to get to that situation and course correct it in one way or another before it becomes front page news and therefore damaging to the commission as a whole. Because again, when we talk about trust and we talk about how we build it with the community for this process and this commission, it's not only things that are bound in your own process that can drive a lack of trust. It's other things like, oh, well, now we're 4 months down the road and we have a huge sexual harassment complaint that makes front page news involving a commissioner. Does that erode community trust in a way that the rest of you would be comfortable with? Probably not. I leave to you that question.
So in this scenario, a commissioner regularly comments, and so the implication is that I'm aware of it. I mean, the implication is that I'm aware that this commissioner is making somebody uncomfortable.
You
And
might not
so-
be, but
Well, but I
Yeah.
mean, if I'm not aware of it, then I'm not aware of it. I'm not going to do
Yeah.
anything about it.
Correct.
So the assumption is, I mean, obviously, if I'm not aware of it, I'm not going to do anything about it. But
Correct.
if I am aware of it, and I'm aware that a staff person is regularly being made uncomfortable, then it's up to me to say something, because we're all one commission. We all get judged together.
Commissioner Hybolds, I really want to thank you, though. I think for your candor, I think the statement that you made is true. It's awkward. Like grown-ups don't normally. If you came up and checked me, I'd be just like, why are you talking to me like that? But it might be maybe to reframe because it's weird. You welcome. You have a job. These are your colleagues. If that helps, and so in that way, the person next to you is actually. I don't know if that helps for you or not. It is unusual. But it does kind of, in situations like this, it does. Did you need to?
Oh, I was just going to confirm the city manager is
Oh.
on, and he has an involvement with this commission and in this process and in the overall process of how we interact with one another, employees to commissioners, employee to employee, et cetera. He may have something to add here.
Can I say something? As you know, I'm doing the Citizens Academy thing, and I think it was the night that the city manager's office held forth, and the lady who was kind of introducing people introduced an attractive young woman as the best-dressed woman in Vallejo or something like that, and commented on her attractiveness, which I kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit. But apparently that kind of thing is not allowed anymore, although it was female to female. But
Social norms are hard, right? Because some of that is what we're talking about. Some of it is a social norm, and some of it is over the edge of that. And unfortunately, where that line is today in society is hard, because you may have a lot of difficulty. I'll use myself as an example. I might have a lot of difficulty figuring out whether it's acceptable to Rania for me to say to her, "Your hair looks fantastic today." Is that a comment on her appearance that I probably could and should keep to myself? Probably. But is she the type of person, and I don't know her super well, is she the type of person who's going to be offended by that? Or is she the type of person who's going to say in her own head, she doesn't think about it twice. "Oh, thank you. I tried something new today and I really like it."
Girl with this hair, if it was good, I'd say thank you.
There-
Very
there you
much,
go.
Very much.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I think it's, you're right. The line is not clear. It's not black. It's not white. But there's some point at which we all know someone has stepped over it. There's some pretty clear indication, and it's usually around looking at the receiver and understanding how is the receiver behaving. If the receiver is clearly comfortable with it, it's something that we do all the time, every time we meet one another. Love that skirt. Oh, your shoes are so cute. Whatever that is, that's our social norm. And when you observe it, you're going to observe it one way. If every time you see us together, one of us is clearly looking uncomfortable, that's the time when I think you have to look at it from a standpoint of, there may be more going on there now. What's my observation? And do I need to just say something to someone? Because the first place, if you say it to me, there's going to be a look at that situation. And if that person is uncomfortable and is interviewed about whether they're uncomfortable about, they're going to tell me one way or the other, or they're going to tell the investigator or whoever one way or the other. Oh no, that's just the way we interact. Or, yeah, I'm very uncomfortable. You're correct. Andrew's on. Did you want to add, Andrew?
I was just going to add that I've been, I was just going to add that I've been enjoying the dialogue and found this training very useful. I think Veronica's point that we really have to be mindful of how something might be received is paramount. It's not about the intention with which we're communicating something. It's about protecting others with who are engaging from violating their rights and privacy. So, just as I try to do, and I advise my staff, just be very cautious. And I know that you all are being and are giving this some deep thought based on the dialogue we're having this evening.
Point where if it hits the newspaper, now you've taken, because more chances are everybody that's a commissioner is going to be interviewed about this behavior, whether it's been observed or not observed. So now we're weighing in on dealing with this situation versus dealing with the community situation. So we've now taken our focus off the purpose of what we're here for. So that's something that comes to my mind as we're having this discussion.
It may be a serious matter that we don't want to describe as a quote unquote, my words, distraction to the work of the community, of the committee, but it is. It would be that, is your point. At some point it would shift focus away from your work and what this body is here to do as a commission onto something extraneous, important and possibly bad, but extraneous. Yeah.
So this one, I'll just share very quickly. That scenario was actually based on two commissioners. One commissioner was doing it to the other. It was a new commissioner that had just joined, and it was male-female, so you win, Commissioner Hybels, on that. But the commissioner the female commissioner found it very uncomfortable that the male commissioner kept asking what her retirement was because she has such nice clothes and such. And so the trigger there, this was harassment, that it triggered the staff person to run a series of trainings so that everyone, because they did have very strict discrimination and harassment definitions and rules in their jurisdiction, the next step would have been for that commissioner to file an ethics complaint, right? And that's what you will do. If you see anything that's massively disturbing, go seek counsel first, but you're starting to refer folks to, like, if they're in the city family, they're going to HR, right? But a good gut check, as you were telling the story of the two ladies, you cringed. Yeah, it's wrong. Because as Veronica said, now our dynamic is on display we have an inside joke. That's not inclusive. You don't know us. I want to be able to talk about no, that's what you're creating. It's looking like clicks, which is fine, it's friends, of course you are. Just be mindful. You're not going to not do it or not or get rid of it entirely. And maybe you don't want to speak up. That's fine. It is the other commissioner's problem until it gets to be all of your problems. Okay, who hasn't gone? You haven't gone, Commissioner.
I
What
have
number?
number 7.
Okay,
The commission invites community input on a draft police policy via an online forum in English only during a tight 5-day window. Okay, my first probably concern would be the online forum for me,
yeah,
because a lot of people don't have internet,
yeah,
and some of them have phones, but they have to go to use public places, and when you're filling out forms, it takes forever and loading and stuff. And then the next one, I will have an issue with English only.
yeah.
It's pretty sure it's a lot of people that speak different languages, so that would be an issue. And then maybe if it's really important, a 5-day window probably wouldn't be enough time
Bang on.
to get feedback and to get people involved into it.
So how would you do it differently? You're king for a day, money's no object. Apparently time is no object. How would you do, or queen for a day, I don't know, you can be whatever you want. You are it for the day. How would you do it differently? Just, again, just an idea, yeah.
Okay, I would probably, have it, at like public places.
Yeah.
Maybe like they have like popular food banks have it, forums there in different languages, of course. Libraries, so places that people kind of frequent a lot.
Yeah,
And then definitely have it more days than that,
yeah,
and probably spend some money on, different type of like advertising if it's, I guess really important.
yeah. Yeah, not bad. Anyone else? I mean, again, these are great ideas, and I hope if you ever have a conundrum, the only thing would be the 5 days. It could be that something's happening in the charter, or you're about to take summer recess, and so if you don't get it done, then we can't get it on according to Brown Act, right? So I've only got a week for you. So you would have to maybe do all the same things but get creative in that week. So it's just about being creative. How are we going to do this? So you want, right, diversity. Who's in the room? So I need many voices. Who's most impacted? Okay, make sure I can get to them. What does that look like? What is get to them? What am I doing? How am I doing this with integrity? Hey, Commissioner Roy, come with me. We're going down to the barber shop. We're going to have a conversation with these fellows about this, right? So now you've got a couple of us. We're taking notes. We're going to come back. We're going to talk to the commissioner. So you're just going to get creative. Spot on. Anything else on that one? No. Who hasn't gone? Commissioner Yoon?
I think me, but I had 4 as well.
Oh, I wrote 4 twice? Pick another number, please.
Are there still some in the basket?
Yeah, I've got 2, 4. We haven't actually gotten a bingo yet.
Okay.
I need a 9 or a 1 or a 5.
Actually, I'll do 1.
Okay, do you want bingo?
A fellow commissioner who is also a well-known faith leader makes repeated public remarks that reflect poorly on the LGBTQ community members. In deliberation, he refers to lifestyle choices and frames objections in religious terms.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this person is making it at public comment at one of our commissions?
Yeah, he's a commissioner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or they are a commissioner. Maybe it's a she. Should I put he? This one was a he again. This is based on a true story.
I chose a hard one. I think it's a couple things. One, I would probably talk with them on the side and be that, you're more than welcome to have your opinions specifically that are focused on a certain community. However, for purposes of what we're doing here today, that those comments may be perceived in a very negative way, and it's not very inclusive because it's whatever you say together with us is a reflection of all of us.
Yeah.
And it's not a reflection that I would appreciate, and it's not a reflection or opinion that I would support in any way. But I also would say, it's absolutely your right to say that. if that was said in a public setting in a commission, I'd probably speak up and say, that may not necessarily be the reflection of every commissioner sitting here today, to point that out.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know. We also, just culturally for me, I have deference to elders, right?
Yeah.
So I have a level of respect that I give to everyone here.
Yeah.
And
Is that a bias? No, I'm teasing.
but
it might
honestly,
be.
it is,
Yeah.
right? Because there are definitely moments where I go, I should have said something, but my immediate reaction is because he's elder or someone who's highly respected, I take a step back and not say something. And then I walk away and I realize that was a moment I should have addressed something because that definitely went that way and that was not the intention and I knew it. And I don't have that opportunity to call it back or to correct it. And I think in this setting, that is very important because it is very easy for us to have conversations that can spin off because of the sensitive material. But I have to remind myself that it is an opportunity to be okay of addressing it if it does come up.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking to a well-known faith leader who's going to have very strong opinions, and he's a leader or she's a leader. And I think I would definitely address and say, hey, that's not necessarily a reflection of everyone else here, and it's a very uncomfortable conversation. And that conversation can happen outside of this setting, but it shouldn't be brought here.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, play devil's advocate. Can anyone argue against Commissioner Yoon?
I can.
Please.
My first question is, what church do you lead, so I can not send folks there?
Against.
I mean, the key,
Although maybe you want to go, I don't know.
I mean, when you say a well-known faith leader, to me, if you're a faith leader, you're supposed to be using encouraging words. So what you're doing is you're letting your bias is coming through and your opinion is coming through. And so words matter.
Yeah, yeah,
And
they do.
so what he's probably not realizing is that more than likely he's offending someone that's in the audience with his comments. And again, it's more about we're focusing on the community. So we've just lost probably some individuals who are in the audience based on what he said. So he has to be mindful of what he's saying and who he's talking to. He's not sitting down in a coffee shop or at home or on the phone talking to someone. You're in a public forum. So he has to be careful and mindful of what he says.
What if he says to you, well, what if I say to you that my congregation expects me to toe the line? Like, why am I going to speak differently outside of my church?
So his congregation expects him to toe the line?
The congregation agree. These are divisive topics, nationally being discussed, nationally being like, right, you've got folks vilifying other folks. What do we do?
I would certainly ask for clarification. So your congregation tells, so what does that look like?
And
Explain
in
that to me.
in our church, we believe it's forbidden. It's sorry, I only have my Arabic words, so it's haram. What would you do? Sorry, go Commissioner Jones.
I don't really know, but I would just want to ask this, like, could I say, well, you know, we apologize, Commissioner, whoever is kind of sensitive, can we get him, not get him removed, but like, you know, take him to the back office, we could cool down, he's kind of passionate, he's passionate
You want to
about
take me
this.
outside?
Yeah, I mean, you know, to the back room where he could, you know, sit down and, you know, kind of remove him from this topic, because if he feels that strong about it, he's definitely going to be making faces and, you know, going to disagree with probably everything they have to say.
Yeah.
So-
Thank you.
So-
Can I just, before you go?
Sure.
I just want to make sure. Commissioner Roy, did you have something to add? No, Gotcha. Sorry, thanks.
So on your note, Commissioner Jones, I would say that's the art of the request for a recess. It's interesting, but you know, a recess can help a lot of things, including it can bind in some reflection time or some cool down time for a participant or, you know, one of your commissioners. It can happen. Let's just say there's a very heated discussion about something going on that doesn't have anything to do with one of these scenarios, but the temperature in the room has risen beyond comfort level for whatever reason. Well, it's often true that a recess or a request for a recess to the chair at that point can say, hey, now I think would be a good time for a recess, or, I need a bio break, or whatever it is that can just give a break in the conversation such that people can either take the opportunity to reflect and or just temporarily interrupt the conversation so that there can be some more cool air entering the room and maybe calmer minds can prevail when you come back to take up the rest of the topic. And I know that sounds simple, but it honestly is useful in the context of something's starting to spin to a point of potentially being out of control, and you can use the art of the recess to bring it back to the point you're really talking about and is within your purview by just everybody taking a deep breath. Going out, somebody meets someone else in the bathroom and talks about something off topic. How did your kids do? I heard the play today at the elementary school was great. Suddenly their mind moves off of whatever that was onto something else, something positive, and they're able to, sort of break the cycle.
It's kind of, go ahead.
This would be a very sticky wicket, really, if we had somebody with those views. I mean, that goes right hand in hand with some races are born inferior to other races, and I don't think I could serve with somebody that believed that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whether or not people choose to be homosexuals, I mean, I think the evidence is in, but I don't know if it's proven beyond any doubt, but I mean, that kind of a view is so kind of backward now.
Well, in some
I don't know.
instances, does it matter? Because it in some ways, it's a bias being spoken to out loud. You have a commissioner that clearly has a bias. Now what? It's
really simple. This isn't church.
Yeah.
Well,
This is not church. He can go do his LGBT whatever at church, but if he's going to come here, this is a different thing.
You can also see it as a public ethics complaint, because it's uncomfortable. It's not only probably making people in the audience uncomfortable, it's probably making several commissioners uncomfortable.
Yes, and it's likely to polarize, right? So to the extent that something is polarizing for you on the commission, it's also likely polarizing for the community. And so, and that's true, oddly, regardless of which, I don't know what I want to say, boot your foot is in, right? Polarization doesn't lead to great decisions ever, right? Everybody's entrenched, nobody cares about the facts, they're stuck in their loop, their own mindset loop. That's the very place we don't want, honestly, any of our boards or commissions or the council as a whole, or even our staff stuck in a loop of mindset. So yes, I do think that it's a serious issue. And it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. It matters to the person, the individual receiving, on the receiving end of it. But it could be any deeply held inappropriate bias that we could be talking about here.
For me, it speaks to a couple of things. Also, if I were an officer that happened to be in that community, I would, and then I know that that's a commissioner that's about to be reviewing my case, I have an issue. Right. So then you've allowed me, the officer, to put my hand up and be just like, no. Right. And now you've built an illegitimacy into an accountability structure. So when in fact you're holding them accountable, right? We're doing that. But it also speaks a little bit to like the behavior part. It is some people's beliefs, like whether here, there, right? We just happen to be in a reasonably progressive state. So there's that. Go back to your rules. Go back to your mission, go back to your purpose. And that's what you get the person with. And if it's still problematic, then you're going to take it to someone else. Because at the end of the day, you're all still civilian volunteers. Or again, decide when you get to your governance structure, what can the chair and the vice chair do?
and it's always true for in your own ordinance, in the governing ordinance for this body, there are certain things that mandatorily remove a commissioner, but permissively removing a commissioner, so the appointing city council member who has a commissioner, and yes, they're all approved by everyone, but by district here for this commission, there are individual appointments that have to be ratified by the city council. But there are also ways to remove someone. And so certainly if someone is sitting at the front of this commission and using it to advance personal beliefs over what the charge of the commission is, would that or could that be grounds for removal that could, go up the chain to the appointing city council member to say, hey, we've got a problem? Of course, absolutely. So it isn't as if your hands are tied or staff's hands are tied or the city manager's hands are tied. I mean, we all have a responsibility ultimately to make sure that the process is fair and that it's not being, I'll use a subverted to other processes or other beliefs. So I think there's that safeguard, there's that guardrail, for lack of a better word.
So in real life, this was an elder, so the chairperson was a woman of the same community and didn't feel like she could check him. It was slightly different to how you folks are formed here. There was mayoral and then council appointments, right? This person was mayoral, so it was a political play to keep him in. And interestingly, what that board decided to do was they tried to talk to him privately a couple of times. They tried to have folks from the same community come out and talk to him privately a couple of times. And then they left him to, pardon my language, but show his ass, right? Because it was a political appointment, because there was really not very much. And so at that point, it's just like, and so what happened, that commissioner of his own accord becomes the story and a kook. And then everyone dismisses, oh, that's Reverend, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Immediately, that's what we started to hear, right? So it's interesting how it worked out. It's very unfortunate that that would be the end of his legacy as a man of faith and a leader and a da-da-da-da, but all right, that's how it worked out.
I think Ms. Sykes knows more about this than I do, but I read online that an African-American police commission member was either quit or had to resign, or was fired or something because she was using N-word against other African-Americans or something like that. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, you mentioned at one time that the police commission in Antioch shut down or something, I thought.
I've had a commissioner shout, well, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it happened.
Shout something inappropriate.
Shout something inappropriate at someone of the same community. They were two African-American folks. One is a commissioner, so is the gentleman that's talking. He belongs to the city. She started as, yeah. And so it's still racism, it's still discrimination.
You're talking about the recent one, right?
Oh, actually, this was a couple of years ago. But
Oh, there's
was
the
there
recent one,
Oh,
too.
is there? Oh, dear. We'll change notes. Okay. Look, we've got, has everyone gone?
Yeah, I think that there was one.
Okay, actually, I've got 3 left. I'm just going to grab it. I'm going to make you pull one.
You gonna make me pull
Yeah,
one?
I'm going to have Miss Neb pull one, and then...
And then we should get to our pizza before it's cold. All right, so I'll pull this one.
All right, read it out, and then the
Well, I would, but I don't have it because this is
Oh.
just a number. It's okay.
What number did you get? Number 2?
2. All right. During a public meeting. Sorry, Manny. During a public meeting, a commissioner mimics a speaker's accent while summarizing their comments. A few colleagues laugh. No one addresses it in the moment. Thoughts, ideas?
Well, you could double back, right? And you could talk about it after the meeting. I don't know what the sort of guidelines are about addressing something like that in the moment, in public, in front of everybody.
I mean, you all laughed at it, so.
Well, I
Well, a
believe
few.
that a few
It
colleagues laughed
says a
at it.
few, a few. Commissioner Roy did not laugh. I watched him carefully.
So, I mean, I would hope that on this committee, we would check each other and we would say something about it in the moment. But of course, if not, I would think that you need to double back. And if not, I would think that we would probably hear from the public about that type of behavior because it sounds discriminatory and it sounds highly inappropriate for the work that we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Anyone else on that one?
It's interesting that no one addresses it in the moment, because the first thing that comes to my mind is highly inappropriate, and so I don't, and excuse me if I'm using the wrong term, point of order,
Yeah.
call or
Yeah.
something to say, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
on, we have a resident here who has a serious concern, and we need to be respectful of that
Yeah.
person that's presenting their issue to this commission. So something like that, to call out that person and go, what you're doing is not
Yeah.
behavior of the right.
I love that. I forgot about your rules of order. Yeah, that's perfect.
That also gives that individual an opportunity to check themselves, right? So let's just assume for the sake of argument that that person thought they were being funny. Not, they didn't really intend. Now remember, we don't care what they intended, we care how it's received. But addressing it in the moment versus later gives the opportunity, that individual at least one bite at an apple of, oh gosh, you're right. I never thought of it that way. That certainly isn't the way I meant it. Miss Jones, I apologize to you in the moment. There's some value to that, not just for that commissioner, but for the commission as a whole. Hey, we're holding one another accountable and we're calling it out. It's not I almost said something inappropriate. It's not a confrontation situation. It's not a opportunity to check one another per se, but it is an opportunity to remember that you sit as the face of a board for the commission, or a commission for the city. You are representing the community, the city as a whole, and the department as well. Like, you are the face of something that is serious business, ultimately. And reminding one another of that also reminds the community as you're doing it. So there's an opportunity there.
Okay. well,
Good with it. Oh.
Wait, I thought you had one.
Shall we? Shall I do one more? Go on. Commissioner Roy, what are you going to say? No, what were you going to say?
I was just, not to dig into this one too hard, but
That's okay.
I could see a scenario where somebody's from the South or so, and I'm not saying that that's okay to do that, but you can kind of envision a scenario where somebody might get away with something like this, and you might not call it out, or you could maybe envision a scenario where somebody might not feel comfortable addressing it in the moment because it's two people who speak the same language, who have a slightly different dialect, and it's not the language that person speaks or something like that. So I don't know. I could see it getting a little tricky, right?
But we also just assumed that it was a not nice thing, right? Because I use the word mimics. But if one of you put on a British accent and I was all right with it, because Commissioner Jones is about to do it, I can tell. He's coming out with his Dick Van Dyke, and we're having a laugh because we're getting to know each other. Like, would you still check me? A bit, still in jest. And the reason, but you might say you're the chairwoman, I'd still expect you to be like, all right, careful now. Because we get carried away very quickly. I'm all right today. Tomorrow I come back, I'm in a mood. Suddenly Commissioner Jones try his Mary Poppins on me, and I'm just like, right? I changed. You don't know what you're coming into. So absolutely have a laugh. We're all human, but just someone catch it. I also want to point out that we're being really siloed and insular, and this is a these happen so quick. It happens so quick. Your meeting is running. It's getting close to right? I need to get out. So we're not expecting you to pick up on every single stop parliamentary, just better behavior. What was accidental or involuntary outside now needs to be voluntary, just a little bit more, just come in sharper. You're also the first class doing this. So again, you set precedent whether you like it or not. Every class after you is going to be saying, what did this commission do before, right? And then they start stretching their wings. Okay. I'm going to read, let's see, we've got 5 and we've got 9 left. Okay, I'm going to read this one. Number 5, while reviewing a use of force complaint, someone says he shouldn't have been there anyway. The subject is a young black man and the neighborhood isn't his own. Yeah, sad.
That's just wrong.
Yeah, yes, dude.
That's all. There's nothing more to be said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm flogging a dead horse, but you get it. You get it. Just be mindful and check your biases both ways. I mean, again, we all come in with biases. We've just shown you positive and negative. You're also about to, when you come to your investigations, and these are in closed session, you're about to hear some really, I don't know what the stories are. So you're going to have to be balanced and fair. You're going to have to do something with my own baggage. Right? But there are times I just want to share, like you'll start getting sophisticated because there are times where my story and my lived experience is going to help color and explain to the rest of you, right? Like if I've had an interaction and it looks familiar and I can say, hang on, when this happened, but now we're chatting above and then you're going to come back to the case. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want you to be so don't worry about being so buttoned up, but know the rules and then know start feeling that line. Okay, I'm rambling, so I'm going to keep moving. Sorry, anything from you, Veronica?
No.
Okay.
It would now be a good time to take a break.
One last thing, I promise it really is the last slide. Manny, back to the slides, please. And we are on slide 9. These are mine. These aren't my only. Next slide, please. None of this is going to be surprising. This is all, I'm giving you soft skills here, and we're talking about kind of like behaviors. So find the stuff that works for you. Self-reflection, where that's meditation, where that's like in the moment. Wait, am I assuming, like, let me just double check. Hang on, did I just say that out loud? You know what I'm saying? Like, do it within yourself, do it with each other. Commitment to standards. You have some standards. We talked about them. Once you start coming into your role, you'll be developing some more standards, but you have some standards. So keep going back to that. Hey, I don't like that behavior. Whether I like that behavior or not, Commissioner, the rules say, right, remind me, bring us all back down. Checking assumptions, staying curious. Just because someone gives you a piece of information, just because a reporter calls you up and says like, hey, what I didn't put in the story that you should know, because you're about to see that investigation, thanks so much, thank you, heard. And then you might come into the room and say like, I just want to let you know, I'm hearing this anecdotally, that means others might be, let's get into it and check the facts, right? You get to hear shit, you get to hear stuff, and carry it with you, and you get to talk about it. You're just not where it comes in as you're thinking about the deliberation. That's where you have to be like, okay, yeah, but that was a journalist that called me on the side, so we're not going to credit that with too much. Multiple viewpoints. Have you asked enough people? We'll get into some of this in procedural justice and, of course, practicing procedural justice. So we just talked about like the elements of fairness. Once we get into procedural justice, you're going to start building it into your processes. That's what I've got. Next slide just says thank you. I don't have resources and reading for you these modules, but I'll explain why later. Break. Did you? Oh, do we do? Forgive, I won't answer because I'm not entirely sure.
No, there is no community forum as it is a special meeting, but there will be an opportunity for you to speak to the training materials tonight. Items on the agenda, in other words. So I think we're going to take a break first, though, and
do we want to work through the break? How do you feel? Do you want to get food, or do you just want to like take a break? Well, yes, but do you want to eat it?
It may already be cold, but yeah.
Do you want to eat it while you're working, or do you want some time?
Yeah, let's do a quick. How long do we have on the second set here?
So it's about probably an hour.
Okay, so it's 7:45. We basically said we were going to go 3, and it's actually 7:49. Let's do 15 minutes worth of break and come back. Is that good for the commission? Okay.
Thank you.
live and on and not in recess, but I don't know how.
Okay.
Do we know where Manny went? He'll hear me?
Okay.
I'm here. I'm going to switch over right now.
He already heard me. Thank you, Manny.
Oh, I think we should build that into the training. Manny is all-knowing. Don't talk into the mic if you don't want him to know.
Well, he may not be all-knowing, but he's at least all listening. That was a tease, Manny, sorry. All right,
That
moving
was,
on.
sorry, Manny. See, none of you checked me.
Nobody checked me.
I just doubled down on it.
Right,
This is, don't do this.
Manny, can you bring up the other presentation on procedural justice, please?
So back from recess, do you need to bring us back into a meeting in any way? Okay.
I just did.
All right, fantastic. All right, and you folks have your slides for procedural justice. Fantastic. All right, let's get in. I'll just give it a minute while Manny loads up the second one. What we've covered so far. So module 1, cornerstones of ethical oversight, a lot about integrity, a lot of kind of like touching high level. Module 2, we're starting to get into more of the rules, some of the swim lanes, the laws, bias, fairness, perspectives that shape your choices. So module 3, procedural justice, we're about to turn into process, right? So actually the how you're going to do stuff, how. This is a short module. I also want to make sure that we touch on the principles of procedural justice, the definition, so we align on a definition. I am familiar with procedural justice first through policing. And so for me, procedural justice and oversight was a new thing that I had to learn. I was just doing it instinctually. But I've heard, and I don't know if you, as you've heard procedural justice where you've heard it, I've heard it regarding policing. So I want to just look at what it means for policing, because you are going to be asked to look at some of that. But really, we're going to focus on the process. Because I'm going to focus on the process and I'm going to talk to you about things that you haven't done yet and don't get to do just yet, I just want you to hold that, okay? So as much as possible, we're going back to the kind of ask for clarifying and just think about the design of a thing. All right. Next slide, please, Manny. So I just mentioned, just again, an overview. I tend to write a lot in the slides. I'm sorry, they shouldn't normally be so text heavy, but you get to keep them and then revisit. So again, the key takeaways, just very quickly, that deep understanding of procedural justice and why, or at least a deeper understanding. I don't know, perhaps you know all about it. And the ability to apply the 4 principles or some of the core principles. Some would say there are more than 4. I picked from, I'm following NACOL when it comes to this stuff, just so that you're aware. That's the body that is the oversight. It's an association of oversight agencies, so we'll talk about that. Okay, moving on. Next slide, please. So procedural justice and oversight, or procedural justice in general, is the idea that people judge fairness by the process, not just by the result, right? So the 4 core principles that I'm using for you, but again, please feel free to kind of read around this. Voice, neutrality, respect, trustworthiness. I hope these are starting to already feel familiar, right? So what's voice then? What have we just done? Diversity. Who's in the room, right? Neutrality, rules applied. There you go. It's in that definition without bias. So I'm going to try and be as fair as possible. I'm going to make sure that everyone around me is having a good time. Respect, makes sense, I hope, and then trustworthiness, that we've been talking about, your credibility. I've given you the NACOL definition on the side. Procedural justice and legitimacy should serve as core principles guiding the work and processes of effective civilian oversight rooted in behavioral psychology. Procedural justice typically centers on how authority is exercised. For entities whose authority is established by law, the recognition of their right to that authority and perceptions of how fairly that authority is exercised are crucial components of legitimacy. Again, bit wordy, says the same thing. Your process has to be as fair as a result. Okay. Moving on. I'm going to take in policing first. In policing, procedural justice is about officers treating people with respect during stops. Decision-making appears unbiased. Legitimacy of the law is reinforced through behavior. What else do you expect your police officers to do? As residents, not as commissioners. as a resident? Anything that you would add to that list? Actually, let's just talk about people's expectations. I don't know if it's right or not. What do you expect an officer to do?
I hope they would listen.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I did.
They would listen.
listen. I have a fear of police officers still. Courtesy for me, right? That moment of, it's not even de-escalation. Can you come at me slowly so that I'm already nervous? And so when they start talking about fidgeting or acting, I mean, yeah, I'm scared. Yeah. So for me, that it's courtesy. What else comes up for you?
Is to have some type of respect for the community where they serving at.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of come in a certain way, right? Yeah. See, we're still talking about felt perceptions. I just want to reinforce that. Okay, moving on to oversight. So not massively dissimilar. Your review processes are fair, just, and consistent. Your meetings are inclusive, safe. They should be, and you have to be accommodating, right? So your physical space. So once you start having meetings, if you decide that you want to have meetings out in community, where are we going? Is it wheelchair accessible? Can we get, is it for the visually or hard of hearing? Can we get all the materials ready? And of course, your recommendations are grounded in fact and equity. So we just talked again, in the last one, we talked about newspaper clippings, we talked about so-and-so giving you bits of information. Is it fact? It might be juicy, might be good. Let's go and do some research and see if there's any truth in it, right? So you're going to base your things on fact. Any questions, any concerns, any thoughts? Okay, moving on. I mean, procedural justice is how you're going to do your work. It's just, again, it's the fairness. So what does it look like? So in a meeting, who gets to speak and who gets interrupted? That's yourselves. That's you with the chief or whoever the chief designates if you are inviting, right? So if you keep interrupting the officer or the commander or the chief, if the chief keeps interrupting you, if you'll interrupt all of this, right? Who's speaking? What's being agendized? If I've asked you 7 times, we talked about this last week, I think, right? Like, if a member of the public asks you to take a topic up and you keep declining, say I've asked you 7 times now to look at the sex workers on the corner of my neighborhood. Can you? Is that your jurisdiction?
Hardly.
Right. So what do you say?
Call the chief's office.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you can also help carry that message, but you can't take it. I mean, now if you want to have a conversation about public safety, right, for me, that's triggered. Okay, so your neighborhood doesn't feel safe. Let me go find the chief and figure out what's happening in your neighborhood. Where dispatch, what happens, is that a situation? Otherwise, this might not even be the police department's fault or problem. Again, without going into big polarizing national conversations, I'm going to remind you about defund. The defund movement was not necessarily about defunding the police, but rather moving non-law enforcement responsibilities away. No cop wants to be a social worker, right? And so we socially have blurred the line, and we've asked our cops to do way more. And then they have lent into it sometimes, or not. Anyway, sorry, back to the who's speaking, who's at the meeting. Okay, so you've got public comment. You started public comment. It's past midnight. There's still a line. Are you closing the meeting? No. Right.
Technically, you can't. It's like voting. You have to wait till the last person.
Commissioner Roy, what were you going to say?
No, I just realized my mic was not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. In a vote, was your process clear and the rules applied consistently? We're not in those votes. We'll be with you in votes when you're talking about material that you can talk about. I assume some of your investigations were not in the room with you. There's things that you cannot legally share, even if you really want to, even if it's the bugbear for the public. The community knows that this officer or this is always happening. You're not allowed to share. But what you can do is explain why you're not allowed to share. It's your responsibility to educate me so that I still have a right to keep asking you. But once I understand, then let's get creative again and figure out how to change the laws. But I can't. I'm sorry. That's the rule. And here's the rule, right? So I think we had a scenario, or maybe we didn't, but coming out of closed session, or maybe we come to it, coming out of closed session, for example, there's really not very much that you can say, I imagine, unless you've completely finished a case. But remind people why we go into closed session. Remind people why. Remind them, use code, use the law. Don't burden me with it. But by reminding me and telling me, let me go and look up, right? Then I share the burden of responsibility of educating myself and awareness. Okay. In a report where your perspective's considered fairly, was evidence weighed? Same in the private sector. I imagine same in non-profits. You know, when you're writing a memo or something to your boss, you do some positive, some negative, right? Okay, your role isn't just to be fair, it's to be seen as fair. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Okay, these are just, I'm starting to touch on some of the tools that you're going to have available to you. I think the first, structure public comment and provide feedback, are two that I think you're obliged, public comment you're obliged to do for a public meeting, as you know. Providing feedback, I would like to go back and check your mandate, your ordinance. But I think there's something there that you're supposed to be reporting back about your work. But again, we'll take it from the top. These are ways that commissions run, and so we're going to talk about procedural justice in them. Structuring a public comment. So this is where we get, I want you to kind of get a bit imaginative or start thinking. I'm sorry, I know you're kind of not active just yet, but you are about to be, God willing. How are you going to do it? I did see, and maybe it's already decided for you, so forgive me if this is a redundant question. I saw forms. I assume you're asking folks. What's your time limit? There's 50 of us in here. No one's gotten up just yet. We've only just started. What's your time limit? Yeah, I know there's a 5-minute legal, right? Okay. Oh, they're not good.
Depends on how many people are in there.
Most cities, they do 2 minutes.
Okay. What's yours?
You really want to know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, if, you know.
My public comment, I always try and stay within it. Anywhere. I've done public comments in 45 seconds, but I would stay within that 2 to 3 minute time frame.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I've been to places where comment can go and people start repeating themselves.
Okay. So we're going to land at 3 minutes. Okay. 25 people just came in. So now we're at 75 to 100 people in the room. 3 minutes?
I would say 2 minutes, and I've said this before where I say at the 2 minute mark, you will get cut off.
Yeah.
I apologize in advance that will happen, but
Yeah.
to get everyone in and to give them an opportunity to speak and to be fair, I've told the secretary, please cut it off at 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever. And I apologize and say, you may get cut off, be mindful, but it'll be fair to everyone that it'll stay exactly at 2 or 3 minutes.
But Commissioner Yoon, last week you had, we could speak for 5 minutes, and now you're telling me 2.
Things change.
Don't forget the storytelling. Folks, our public comment is normally 3 minutes. We do everything to try and respect and honor that. We don't want you to speak too fast. However, this is a packed agenda. We see many people here. We're going down for 2 minutes tonight. But you don't get to switch it up on me randomly, right? I mean, you do. You get to do whatever you want. You are, at the end of the day, the commission. You have that power. But you see, you've created something else that I'm going to argue with you about. Storytelling. That's what I mean by storytelling, like facts, and as often as possible, as well as anecdotes, right? Bring it to life. There was a guy who blah, 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 blah. Did you have any more? Okay. Any other? Something that so Oakland, for example, I believe had cards that if you wanted to submit public comment. San Francisco, we didn't have cards, we had lineup. But San Francisco was slightly different. We also had the sheriff department helping, and so there was people management in case folks got really spicy. Oakland, we didn't we did not, we wanted freedom of speech. And so we had to accept that and then ran the risk of the spiciness. So the perception is reality. If I'm coming to a police accountability meeting and there are cops in uniform, do I want it or do I not want it? You know what I'm saying? Like, everything has a signal, but the signal is going to land differently on who I am. So there are meetings that the cops show up uniformed. There are meetings where sometimes I might ask, do you mind coming in plain clothes? Right? But we're back to public comment. What else about public comment that might be worth mentioning? Oh, I don't have to be at your meeting, do I? I can do public comment written. You still have to acknowledge it. And as best as possible, good practice, acknowledge it at the meeting. If it's relevant, I'd read it out. You don't have to record them, acknowledge them. It's another way. Again, accessibility. If I run ragged, I can't get to your public meeting, it doesn't mean that I'm not included. Okay. I've been talking a lot about ad hocs in the last one, and I just kind of wanted to, I didn't perhaps like build it out a little more. When you get going, there'll be certain things that you have to do, right? You'll be overseeing, you'll get asked to come in and review investigations. But there's other stuff, like we started talking about the canine, like you want to start looking for trends. You want to work closely with the chief because you're about to get into their business. Now you have the right to, right? You've now got, but you also want to start, as much as possible, creating a symbiotic or some kind of friendly professional relationship so that you can say to the chief, hey, we noticed there've been an increase in canine incidents. Please come and explain it to the public. I really don't want to. Okay, you know what we're going to do? We have the responsibility of explaining to the public. So we will form an ad hoc. So ad hocs tend to be how commissions do a lot of their work. It works well because, depending on your schedule, you might only be able to meet once a month. It's a little bit difficult getting into the review and the agenda and then actually doing the work, right? Where you are, the work could be, oh my God, our canine have gone up, canine incidents are up. I looked, I'm one of your commissioners, and I say, my God, that canine policy has not been reviewed or revised for 25 years. Commissioner Yoon, you're going to say, like, I think we should do something about that. Let's see if it still works. If there's a flux, if there's something in the system that suddenly looks funny, that's you to look at it. You get to look at it, you get to research it, you get to offer recommendations and suggestions, right? You have influence power. So build your case. And that's what you do with an ad hoc. And here's what it means to build a case. You really get to, like, you're not absolutely going to change the policy. We're just going to see if it's still cogent, it's still salient, does it still say everything that it needs to say? Because our communities are different now. Make sure that you're going to need facts. So we started talking a little bit before. You're going to have a public meeting because you want to hear ask your community, do we have a problem? Yeah, we do. I see them around. No, we don't. Not in my neighborhood. Da-da-da-da. Okay, hang on. Now, do you see what I'm saying? So you're actually like following a story and then doing some research and saying like, what does everyone else do with canine? Like, how is anyone else coping? Who's having a hard time with it? Let's bring that person in. Come and talk to the public, right? You're going to do this for a little bit. You're going to do your research, and then you're going to write up what you found. Now, there's only 3 of you working on this, right? No quorum. Not allowed a quorum. Got to keep it tight. That means that this ad hoc then has a responsibility to come and share with the entire body. And then you vote on whether there needs to, again, if there is a vote to be had. But normally, if you've written a report, you want to post it. And it has to be voted on because anything that comes out from the commission, not from a subset, even though a subset worked on it. It's the commission behind it. Okay, does this make sense? I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of talking at you in the nebula, so it's a little weird, but is there anything I can kind of help or any questions about how else you might do the work? We've talked about policy revision a bit. You get to do practices as well and protocols. You're not allowed into their admin, but same. Say you've got a lot of people, we're back in the grocery store. You keep getting approached about this one neighborhood or this one street, or this one neighborhood is in a lot of pain. Maybe a couple of you go down and you have I don't know if I've put it on here. Oh, yes, I do. If we bring the slide back up, listening sessions. Your community is your evidence. They're your primary. I mean, there's other evidence as well, right? But hosting a listening session or having a listening session is one of the easiest ways. And all that is, it's a public space. It could be a this, but be careful of the power dynamics, right? Because if it's this already, you folks are in a perceivable position of power. You are special, we are regular, right? So if you're going to do a community session, is that okay? Or do you want to sit with community? Again, it's a perception of fairness and equity and all those things. So a listening session is really, again, about active listening. You're going to go in with 5 questions, maybe 10 in your back pocket, and all you're going to do is ask and listen. Obviously, there's going to be some engagement. Yours is not to have a conversation, it's really to hear, so that you can go back to the chief and say, hey, so we've been to 3 communities and we're starting to notice that, ... Cops don't come on time. It's not my fault, that's dispatch. All right. Can we look at your dispatches? Like, how do we fix this then, right? So what is the issue? So yours isn't to fix it, but you're that community voice. You're supposed to listen to the community. Those are your priorities. What's happening? Chief, what are we doing about it? Okay, that seems sufficient. So what's up? Then go and investigate, figure out what's up. The easiest way to figure out what's up is to ask. Ask impacted communities. So what do you think? What's up? Right. Okay, that's a listening session. And then providing feedback again. Say you started to hear that this neighborhood is, it's in blight, and you can see, and you've had enough listening sessions, and you've spoken to enough officers. And by the way, I think I've seen in your audience, do try and go to a ride-along. Do try and see it from their perspective so that you can help adjust it. If you want it as a resident done a different way, you got to kind of fit in my shoes to see what's your recommendation. Okay. But whatever feedback, that report that you just wrote about the canine probably should go to other folks in the city, right? You should probably, as a courtesy, say like, hey, by the way, we're suggesting that the policy, I mean, you're absolutely going to be working with hopefully with the department. Again, if you're able to have a good, friendly, professional relationship with the department, please do. If not all of you feel like you can, that's okay. Decide amongst you who can. Not everyone has to love all the stakeholders. There's enough of you on here that if it's just like, you know what, I can't with the cops, that's not me going then. Because I'm just putting myself in a situation where I'm gonna make a fool of myself. And I'm gonna discredit the commission. So let me know. If you know that I am exceptionally spicy around men, and I'm like, yeah, send me. Maybe one of you says like, you know what? I don't mean to be rude. They tend to rile you up. How about you sit this one out? I'll go with you, or I'll go for you. So you're going to work with each other, right? And just be able to point things out if you can. But as much as possible, you want to make sure that your other stakeholders know. This also starts to build your own credibility and your own legitimacy so that as you evolve, you start to grow. This becomes a commission that has a budget. You start doing, again, maybe your mandate starts to expand a little bit. Maybe you're shaping public safety. Right now, make sure you do your homework first. And then get creative about what your homework looks like, right? Just a few things. There are so many other things that commissions get to do. And again, this is all kind of best practice. This is kind of just how it's done. But if there's a social problem, get creative about how to fix it. Maybe it's 2 of you. Maybe it's just be the idea of going out with more than just one commissioner just helps in that legitimacy. But by all means, each one of you represents a district, I believe. Is that right? You certainly represent a part of a community that maybe the other one doesn't. Okay, next slide, please. So I've spoken a lot about how, what. Here's where I go. Best practice. Oh, I've just noticed I've got things in. Oh, sorry, my OCD is on overtime. Best practice, where I learn from, where you learn from, where folks in this space learn from. Oversight specific leaders. I've mentioned NACOL a couple of times now. Please look into it. Please look into membership. They have conferences once a year. They have materials. They have webinars. Very good. You also, as a member, there's it's not a group chat, but you can ask a question. Has anyone seen a policy that looks like, has anyone seen bylaws? Does anyone have a good, it's also where agencies start to talk to each other. Hey, in San Diego, we're looking at doing blah, 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 blah. Has anyone done anything similar? Can I see it? Like that. So NACOL's a good one. Centre for Police Equity. I don't use them as much. But you'll also find your own. I mean, like I said, NACOL's my kind of go-to, and then Community Resource Hub. I don't remember that one off the top of my head. Government and policy institutions. This really does, unfortunately, depend on the administration that's in. I'm not going to try and get into it. The COPS office would have some really good reports. Unfortunately, under this administration, they have been deleted. But they do some really good work. And there've been some, under all administrations, right? Like the DOJ is the DOJ. Some of these I don't know that I want you to touch while we're in this administration, because I want you to stick to the values that you decide on. But you are going to be hearing them. Perf and post, I think you have, I think Ms. Neb mentioned that you have some post training coming up. Perf is also where police officers go. The IACP is another good one. I should have put that under advocacy. That's the International Association for Chiefs of Police. They have some really good material. So start looking at stuff, start signing up to mailing lists. Better to do it when you get, you can use your own email. Be careful with your own email, right? If you start doing city business on your email, I know that there are email issues, and I know you're waiting to get your email. So for now, just be mindful. Once you get going, once there is a city email for you, use that. If you don't, I get to pull everything. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time, because I know logistically I don't want to get into whether you have or not, but I know you're getting one. So perf and post, a good NIJ is good. Post also does a lot of, they offer training also to police departments and law enforcement, so sheriff's office as well. Advocacy and watchdog groups, the ACLU, Marshall Project, some of these are fairly obvious. I mean, the ACLU is always putting stuff out, but again, mind the bias. Like ACLU takes some very strong positions. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't. I tend to invite them to my ad hocs because they are so well researched, but I'll be intentional about my facilitation, and I realize that this is being recorded and friends from the ACLU will be listening. I mean this with any stakeholder that you have. Who's in the room matters, but at the end of the day, you need to facilitate that meeting. So I'm happy to let anyone in, especially if you've got some good ideas. The Marshall Project does some really good long form. Vera Institute is another good one, VERA. They do, they've just done a series around prison recidivism. You'll also start to find your own. The police scorecard, they're new to me. Well, they were post George Floyd. They came out with the 8 things that have to be in a use of force policy. So this is stuff that the industry knows, stuff that I lean on, stuff that folks have told me about. You'll find your own as well. Start Googling, start looking. You got to do your due diligence though, right? There's a lot of misinformation out there, so make sure that your sources are at least accredited. Make sure, test with each other. Wait, I read this thing. Do you know this group? Am I following the right group? Because there are so many groups out there saying things, and you just want to make sure you don't want to be associated with something that might be controversial, and then you're in trouble. Any questions about best practice? Okay. Next slide, please. Best practice isn't static, it evolves. So just because it happened, just because we use ad hocs doesn't mean that ad hocs are the only way to go, right? Just because it worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work next week. Just as, I don't need to tell you, we are a really fast evolving society, and I think I mentioned last week that from where I'm sat, one of the issues is that community expectations just isn't matched with police practice. It just isn't. We were used to police being the be-all, end-all, at least that's the world I grew up in, right? Like, if a cop came round, you better act right. And it's a little different now. Now we question, right? For whatever reason. So, just make sure that you're reading, make sure you're listening, make sure you're talking. Do the thing that feels comfortable to you. I know we talked about access. I really will try and find like non-reading things, but also just talk to people. Other ways, I just want to make sure that it comes up. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Oh, yeah, sorry, it's the second bullet. Build relationships with other commissions and reform leaders. It really helps. Again, you don't have to talk about the work just yet, but if you know folks, if you want introduction to folks, maybe you want to wait for your email though, but start getting to know other commissions around you. There's one in San Francisco, there's one in Oakland. You might not like them. You don't have to, doesn't matter. Again, it's a group of people. But you'll start, hey, how did you do that thing? Or we watched your meeting. Watch meetings. Have them on in the background. I don't know that you need to watch a whole sit glued, to a meeting. Have it on in the background. Start hearing how other commissions do it. And don't just stick to the West Coast. If there's a commission meeting that you wouldn't mind catching on the East Coast or someone tells you about something, because they do things really differently over there. Well, I mean, it's not wildly different, but, it's different. So reach out. Hey, we're a new commission. We'd like to understand what you did, or how did you set up, or what were the biggest challenges, or if you could speak to yourself, back then, what would you tell you? Like that. I don't know. Like whatever conversation feels comfortable. Did you want to chime in?
So, I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think while you're talking to, if you are reaching out to members of other commissions, bear in mind a couple of things. One, ordinances are different. So they may have had challenges and or issues that you wouldn't have because they have different charges in their ordinance. Using, Antioch, what Antioch put out as an example isn't anywhere near close to what you have. They don't have any power to do anything. Or at least in the initial one. I haven't seen if they've got a new one yet. I think that as you look at commissions, bear in mind what information you may get from them will only be relevant if you actually know what their charge is under the ordinance. So that's a lot of kind of legwork to find out how those differ, what they may or may not be doing differently may definitely have something to do with their ordinance. Don't want to discourage you from doing that in any way, just as you're taking that information in, just keep that in the back of your head. Because a lot of it is repetitive, particularly the parts that are, grounded in the law in California. So, if you reach out to Nebraska, I probably don't have an oversight commission in Nebraska, but maybe, bear in mind that what the law is surrounding certain things in that state isn't what the law is in this state. So they may tell you, our biggest challenge is X. Well, that might not be a challenge here at all because the law is very grounded in what we have to do here. So I do think, again, really don't want to discourage the process or anything that you can do to help you be sort of better informed and feel more comfortable, but keep in the back of your head. And if you have questions about it and you say, hey, we heard about this great thing in city of whatever, could we do that? Then, reach out and we'll look at it and see, is that even conceivable under what we are doing? Would it be conceivable with an amendment? Is it just a non-starter in California because of state law? So don't hesitate to look into other things, but sort of I guess I would say, ask before you leap suggestion.
Thank you. So discernment then?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. I have joined, back to that. Look to adjacent fields. I think, again, it depends on how you learn and how you move. I love stealing from other industries. One thing that I did in the private sector, so I feel like I can speak to this, we created this listening tour, we called it a listening tour, where we sent executives from this online financial institution around Palo Alto. So they had to go into an Apple store, they had to order a drink, they had to, for them to experience service. And then they had to tell us about how the service was different from, say, buying a drink to buying earpods. This might be a bit of a stretch, so it might not feel like very natural, but once you start looking out for it, you'll be surprised how you pick up, how we pick up information anyway. So journalism, for example, right? You've got discretion. I'm told secrets. I have to keep them. If I have a couple of journalist friends, like, how do you do that? Because it's really tempting when you've got a good story not to be just like, oh, I just want to tell Veronica. Don't tell Veronica. Well, don't you? Don't not tell Veronica. Anyway, other industries are really helpful. So, but the way I come at it is, what's the problem I'm trying to solve for? I've not got enough people coming to my meetings. That's often a problem in oversight, by the way, unless it's super controversial and then you've got everyone coming to a meeting. But when it's like the meat and like the veg, no one's bothered about coming. Okay, so how am I going to do it? So then I'm trying to think of where else do you have to force people or really entice people to come out? And what does it take? And so I started thinking about like, oh, services that you need, dentist, real estate, you know what I'm saying? Like, then I have to. Okay, so I don't have that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't do this. No one sits and does this calculated. If it helps, it helps. Just look at different industries if it comes up. I'm going to move on to the other column examples of best practice, community listening sessions. Really powerful. Again, you are here to serve community and you're here to check back. There's so many things, but for all intents and purposes, you're reps of the community, serving the community, helping bridge that gap. Unless you're listening to your community and talking to your community, it's just you. And you cease to be a representative, and then it's just you. It's just you on a soapbox. So please don't forget why you're here. Do those community listening sessions. Go out, do tabling, walk around the grocery, like whatever it takes. Have swag with you when you get to that, because people like free stuff. Explain rationales for things like closed session. We kind of talked about that. There are things you're not allowed to do. You can bang your head on a wall. You're not allowed to do it. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to ruin the credibility. You start ruining credibility for oversight in general. It gets really divisive, but you do have that responsibility to educate. Remind me why I can't know about closed session. Remind me if you are going to is there going to be a time where I find out that? And create equity checklists for reviewing new policies. Who's impacted? Who's in the room? I didn't see, have we made sure we've heard from all voices? Well, I didn't see such and such. I didn't see this community being represented. Let's make sure that we at least get a perspective or a voice. Okay. Next slide, please. I've talked to you a lot about the risks. I think I'm not going to keep hammering them. I am going to talk a little about this means, the strong emotions in the room, because I think we've actually started talking about it, and it tees us up for trauma-informed. When folks are coming to you, and I think I, again, seeded hopefully last week, you're often what they perceive as their very last chance at justice. When folks come to you, they've been hurt, they feel hurt, they perceive a hurt, and they are looking to you to fix it, figure it out. I'm at the, right? And so there's big emotions. So you're going to have to figure out, you're going to start you need to diffuse that. Or at least empathize and just recognize that it's there. We'll get into ways that you might, and it's conflict resolution, right? Let's just take a minute. Hang on just a second. All right, I might come out from, hopefully you have a staff person. You know what, you seem really troubled. I'm going to have someone come over and talk to you. Don't leave that person in the trauma, right? Can we stop for a second? Can we take a recess? I feel like we're getting very heated in here and we're starting to lose sight. But there are big emotions. That's the space you're coming into. People may question your legitimacy or attack the process, and they will, and they should. And you need to defend it. And don't be bored of it. Because maybe I didn't come to your 3 years worth of meetings, but today I'm coming in, today I'm angry, and today you're not doing enough. As best as can. You're human. You've been on it for 3 to 5 years. You're like, oh, God, there's a website, there's a this, there's a that, So all of this will start to become muscle. Again, we're being very particular, and I'm being quite isolated. Fairness means holding space, setting clear norms, and responding with respect, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, right? That thing that you tell kids or we tell each other, like, be kind, especially when you don't want to. Again, fairly standard, I hope, and I'm just kind of, again, running through it. What this means for you. Next slide, please. I like these little checklists. Do one for yourself. Have, I don't know, now we do like manifestations on bathroom mirrors and stuff. Whatever you need. What's your little checklist? I've just offered you one. Did I explain? Is there something missing? And ask, do you understand? Is there something missing? Just because they say no doesn't mean they're not, that doesn't mean they're right though, right? Members of the public or community sometimes misses things, or I don't read when it's my business. And so I'm constantly calling the bank, asking them to clarify when they've just sent me an email. It's just like, I should just read. So we're still going to put the information out there. I'm still going to check. Did you not receive it? No, I didn't. Let me check. Let me just make sure that email's working. Let me double check it. Okay. But did I do that thing for the members of the public? Have I been fair? Did I make sure everyone felt heard? Did I say hello? Did I have time to say hello? You know, all of those, like, just little, whatever it is that, again, what your gut, however you use to check your gut in your day jobs and your lives, bring it. Have a thing here. And of course, are your values visible? You can say that you have a mission and a purpose until I see it and read it. I don't know it. Questions here? That's it. Thank you. Last slide is my thank you. That was a lot and a long evening, so I really appreciate you staying with me. Thoughts, questions, what comes up? Who's dreading this now? No, you're not. You're ready. How do you feel about your role? How do you feel about your role, about being a commissioner?
For me, I still have a long way to go learning like a lot of the terminologies, but I do feel more comfortable having these and going through like some scenarios and being able to hear my other commissions speak as well too. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do you feel confident? Does anything trouble you that we've been through? Does a repetition bother you? Okay. Repetition. Repetition. Okay.
I don't know, I think it elicits excitement for me for when we do start, because I've heard my fellow commissioners, and I feel very comfortable that we are all level-headed, and that we actually, it's a good group, and I think we... And I'm very thankful for this training, because I think it brought a lot of us much closer, this new being in the last module, that it's been very helpful because we've had an opportunity to sit down and break bread, and also had an opportunity to just talk and be individuals, and no one's preaching. No one's preaching crazy stuff, so I'm very excited.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm really excited for you. Anything else that's coming up? Any concerns? Is anyone nervous?
This is helpful.
Wait, we got a yes.
Well, we got a few as well. I've also got Commissioner Highballs.
You've spoken a lot about our interaction with the public and so forth. I've got a feeling there's not going to be a great deal of interaction with the public, frankly. I mean, I was on another committee once, and, you know, 2 people might show up, and
Yeah.
although we could conceivably get into some very thorny stuff here.
I imagine you will eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
So I do think that the opportunity for interaction with the public for this commission is significantly greater than some of our other commissions. And I think that's because there's a great deal of public interest in this topic across the board. And not just in Vallejo, but you hear it, you know, to a certain extent countywide or surrounding areas, certainly California-wide, and even in, you know, other areas of the country, that this is a topic of great interest to the public. I think it's an opportunity for the public to speak to that interest, to be involved in it, to have an opportunity to tell the city through this body what are their concerns, what aren't their concerns, what do they feel, you know, they need to establish relationships of trust. It's an opportunity to hear that also from the department. I mean, it's not a one-way communication or a one-way street. I do think that it's also an opportunity to build some bridges that could help people to identify, real issues of concern, but also to build those relationships that change both the narrative and the relationship, right? We all come from where we come from, and we have our experiences. Experiences shape another way. And to the extent that we build bridges, we increase the possibility of experiences that maybe wouldn't happen otherwise. That could be positive or could be bridge building and could be relationship building in a way that not only builds trust, but that also increases the likelihood that people will report things, or that the community's concerns surrounding issues of criminal behavior or other things are more likely to be reported because trust relationships are built, which then enhances things within the community. People aren't, fearful. They say, oh, well, I should report this because this is something I want to improve my neighborhood. Just because people in a neighborhood don't have those relationships, maybe they're not reporting certain things that they'd really like to have stop, but they don't have those relationships and don't have that trust. So hopefully those stepping stones will happen as a result of this process, and hopefully we will get more participation to help build those. Because certainly every time we have one more connection, one more person comes here and feels like they got something out of the interaction. Maybe not the answer they wanted, but they got information. They tell two people, and then they tell two people, and so on, and the conversation shifts, hopefully, to something that is productive for the community as a whole.
I am curious, so Commissioner Roy, did you put your hand up, and also Commissioner Sykes?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, I think I just, speaking to kind of what Ms. Nebb was saying and what everybody's been saying, I think I just feel the weight of this responsibility and take it seriously, and everything that we've learned in the training sessions, as somebody who's never served on a committee like this before, I just don't want to make a mistake. I know that we will make mistakes. I just don't want to mess up, and I just want to take the weight of the responsibility as seriously as we can. And so I want to echo what some other folks were saying, that I feel increasingly more confident and more prepared, especially after the last couple weeks of training sessions that we've had. So let's keep it going.
Awesome. I'm
Thank
really
you.
pleased. Commissioner Sykes.
Yeah, this training has been very helpful. Like most things, like we're the initial commission for the city of Vallejo, so we're carrying a very big load.
Yeah.
And we have to do this right. So I thank you. I just want to know if you're on speed dial, that's all. So I think this training has been very helpful. I have taken procedural justice before, but it's good to see it from the oversight perspective of it.
Yeah.
And it shows that I think a lot of it's just based on common sense and just being think carefully before you speak and weigh on how to respond to people. So that'll give us all an opportunity to practice that, just to think carefully before speaking.
I think you've got a legacy. Some of you are building on legacy that you have in community. Some of you are building your legacy in public, right? What is the commission that does, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be like big things, but so work on yourself, and then what is the story that you get to tell when you step off, when you're finished? What is the story that Vallejo gets to tell? And I think it's interesting. I wonder whether you have some storytelling as to why this commission even came about. Without getting too mired in the drama, because now you're just triggering trauma. But we get to talk about it, and then we got to find language to move on from it, or practices to move on from it. And this is something else, like if this is something coming up in your neighborhoods, is it mediation? Is it like, what are we doing? What is the issue and what needs to be done? But I hope you move through your role with a little levity, because you have each other. I mean, if you can, I know this hardly fun, but to do heavy work, sometimes you just have to you have to find your moments. You have to find your moments of joy. You have to celebrate your wins. You have to celebrate each other, celebrate your community, celebrate your officers when they do well. That's going to be hard like that, but I hope it's really rich and fulfilling for you. Thank you.
Before we conclude, we have at least one member of the audience, and would you like to make some remarks or questions? Absolutely. Oh, sorry. I can just hand over the one that's working.
I'll try to make it brief because it's late already. Okay. What I want to talk about is the things based on my experiences in the Planning Commission, the Civil Grand Jury, and some of the advisory committees that for the city. And while the attorneys may say that some types of behavior or situations are okay, the problem is that other people may misinterpret them. It doesn't matter whether you're pure at heart or not. And from my experience, keeping a low profile prevents a lot of problems. It's a person on a committee who goes out and, tries to be the spokesperson. They're going to be a lightning rod. Some of the things, one that you've heard already, but I think I can't emphasize it enough, avoid social media at any cost. Anything you say can be misinterpreted, and it will be, I promise you. And I would avoid any event that's even remotely political or controversial. And your mere presence says to your critics, and you're going to have critics, they'll think you're on one side or the other. It says to them that you are condoning or agreeing what was being said at that event. And you'll never be able to convince them otherwise. And another thing is there's no such thing as keeping a confidence. People tend to gossip and share what you said, and often it's distorted. I would never try. If someone says, oh, I'll keep a secret, run. And I disagree a little bit. I think when you're interviewing someone, you should always have another member of the committee with you to prevent misinterpretation of your questions, your behavior, et cetera. I just think that ought to be that ought to be part of your rules. It shouldn't just be something that you try to do. I think it should be required. And another thing I think where people make a mistake sometimes is saying that they're only speaking for themselves and not the committee. And I would say that the public often doesn't believe it, or they don't hear that part. So yeah, you can say it, but it's very tricky. And I think if someone asks your opinion or something about an event or an incident, there's a couple things that you can do to address it. One is just talk about what the process is. Another is say you're only allowed to listen, but will forward their concerns or complaints, for example, the city attorney or the chair of the committee, et cetera. And another thing you might say to them is direct, depending on what it is, speak to X about this, which is often the city attorney or the police chief or the liaison, or sometimes tell them about a form that they need to fill out. Thank you.
Manny, do we have any speakers online who may want to speak?
None at this time.
Thank you. All right. Any further questions, Commission? All right. So our next meeting
22nd.
is the 22nd. I am, at this moment, going to say in this room. I know that the city clerk is juggling some schedules items and room space and meeting space. So at this moment, I'm going to say the 22nd at 6, the same thing we've done this evening. However, I just want you to hold in your mind, if she has to juggle too much, we may move meeting space, or we may move time to accommodate more than one meeting on that night. We'll let you know well in advance, because I know she's trying to do that juggling now. So we will let you know well in advance. And if I recall, we have at least one commissioner who told us the 22nd was remote. Commissioner Lewis. Okay. And so please don't forget to reach out to us and let us know the address where you will be, so that we can place that on the agenda so that you'll be able to participate. Or you could just not come at all and participate on or watch the meeting. You could theoretically, as long as you are not as long as you don't speak and participate in the meeting, and these are trainings, theoretically you could just listen. You know, like a member of the public can listen, but you wouldn't be able to, participate as a commissioner.
I won't be able to speak my mind, right?
Yeah. Well, that's. It's a trade-off of one or another. If that's what you choose to do and you don't choose to actively participate as a commissioner, just shoot us a quick email and say, yeah,
Okay.
I'll either listen live or I'll listen after the fact.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else think they won't be around?
No, it's on a slightly different subject. How are we doing on getting the ordinance finished?
We are still working on what all the options are. I'm fairly confident we'll know or have some idea of where we're going by the end of the month, but I can't guarantee that for sure.
Adjourned?
Say it again.
Adjourned.
See, there's something I could say that's a joke that I